Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Global Arrival. Only I Choose Armor. Chapter 61. At this time, listening to Mr. Zhang's words, Yi Tian and Dean turned their heads to look at Mr. Zhang stiffly. There was a look of surprise and uncertainty on his face. It seems that again, you are definitely not kidding us. Are you serious? You were right. Although it is unbelievable, there is no doubt that it is true. It is true. At this time, Yi Feng's strength is already at the same level as ours. Feeling the gaze of Yi Tian and the dean of Tian'ai College, Mr. Zhang sighed and nodded. He spoke slowly, with a serious look on his face. His expression was very serious. Listening to Mr. Zhang's words, Yi Tian and Dean couldn't help but be a little stunned. His face kept changing, and his expression was very shocked. But no matter how hard it is to believe, no matter how hard you dare to accept it, you have to accept it now. Feeling the power that Yi Feng exuded at this time, he recalled the aura that Yi Feng exuded from previous battles. It is undoubtedly the early stage of A level. Thinking of this, the dean and Yi Tian couldn't help but sigh. His expression was a little complicated. The dean is fine, just a little sad. I didn't expect that after decades of practice, I would be overtaken by a young man. But he is almost 50 now, and if he were younger, he might still be unwilling. But now the dean's heart is just full of emotion, with a look of sadness on his face. The waves behind the Yangtze River push the waves ahead, and each wave is stronger than the last. Nowadays it's really the world of young people. He murmured softly, his eyes full of emotion. Compared with the dean, Yi Tian's expression at this time was obviously much more exciting. His eyes kept blinking and his expression kept changing. I don't know whether to cry or laugh. Not long ago, he swore to Zhang Yi that Yi Feng could not surpass him that much. In the end, it only took 2 days, and in the blink of an eye, he was on the same level as himself. How could this make sense? You can't ride a rocket as fast as you. But the higher you go, the harder it gets. Even this kid can't break through so quickly. Then Yi Tian seemed to think of something and murmured softly. He nodded secretly over and over again, his expression becoming more and more calm. You must know that among the 7 levels from SSS to D, level A is in the middle. And the early stage of a level can be said to be a threshold, the threshold that divides high levels and low levels. I don't know how many people are stuck here, but they have been unable to break through and enter a new realm. Even he, Yi Tian, who was a relatively famous genius in his time, had been trapped for more than 10 years. But he is very confident now. With his own foundation and experience, he will soon be able to break through again, and then the world will be different again. I can still maintain my dignity as a father. Yes, that's right, that's it. Yi Tian didn't dare to think about what would happen if Yi Feng surpassed him in the future. He couldn't help but shudder subconsciously, and then nodded heavily. He spoke slowly, a serious look on his face. And this scene is naturally within the scope of Wang Shui's live broadcast. It's just that no one noticed this corner. After all, everyone's attention was focused on Yi Feng from beginning to end, and they were attracted by Yi Feng's amazing performance. Especially at this time, I was stunned. Only Zhang Yi noticed this scene at this time and looked at Yi Tian's expression and movements. He couldn't help but smile slightly and shook his head. He didn't say anything, but stared at Yi Feng closely. Looking at Yi Feng's proud figure and the devastated and empty ground. He nodded slightly. Sure enough, Yi Feng has really grown up. It is different from other people's complex emotions such as shock, wonder, emotion, etc. At this time, in a dark room, a man in black robe saw this scene. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly and frown tightly. In other words, when Yi Feng used his special killing technique, Shadow Ba's brows furrowed. It's not that he was surprised by Yi Feng's strength. After all, Shadow Ba knew the power of these armors better than anyone else. The previous armor heirs could not be regarded as armor at all. In the eyes of Shadow Ba, they were just a bunch of junk. To say armor is just an insult. At this time, the armor summoned by Yi Feng is the real armor in the eyes of Shadow Ba. Although he has never seen it before, it is not bad. Although these armors will not be very strong at first, as you become more familiar with the armor and become stronger and stronger, the potential of the armor will be raised very quickly. Your strength will increase rapidly. The strength of summoners in those armor worlds will increase by leaps and bounds, and these are also the reasons. Therefore, the speed increase that shocked others was nothing more than a normal operation in Shadow Ba's view. Not worth mentioning, not worthy of note at all. What he cared about was that he actually felt it from that sure killing technique. A familiar smell. Could this Xingtian armor have something to do with the Ming realm? I saw Ying Ba staring closely at Yi Feng. He spoke slowly. A serious look on his face. At the end, his eyes subconsciously turned to the sky of Tianai. Perhaps I will find an opportunity in the future to get in touch with these so-called ghost demons. Whispered softly. The light in his eyes kept flashing. At this time, Yi Feng didn't care what these people thought. This also applies to the belated mayor of Tianai City. Brother Yi is amazingly powerful. He has such strength at such a young age. I, Wang, am really ashamed of myself. All of us in Tianai owe you a favor. The mayor came to Yi Feng and spoke slowly. He also saw the battle just now, which really frightened him. The more he watched, the more frightened he became. Even now, my heart is beating fast. Yi Feng looked at him in amazement and said. There was an uncontrollable hint of awe in his tone. At the end, he bowed deeply. A look of gratitude on his face. Seeing the astonishment on the faces of the people around them, they never expected that the dignified mayor of a city would respect Yi Feng so much. But when I thought that Yi Feng solved the problem, I felt relieved again. The mayor was right. Without Yi Feng, none of the people present would have survived. Even if they wait for support, Tianai will probably suffer a huge destructive blow. It might even cease to exist. As expected of you. Thinking of this, Zhao Qing looked at Yi Feng. Sighed softly. The same goes for other people, whose eyes can't help but be filled with envy. I'm afraid that after this incident, Yi Feng's future will definitely be unlimited. You can definitely walk sideways in Tianai. The name Yi Feng and the power of armor will definitely undergo major changes. It's just that Yi Feng doesn't care about the so-called future in the eyes of everyone and listens to the mayor's words. He just nodded slightly. He didn't say much, he just raised his head and looked at the beam of light. Looking at the sky that seems to be cracked. Just raise the fire gun and press it lightly. A light explosive bomb appeared instantly and hit directly. Then it dissipated directly and turned into dots of light, floating between the sky and the earth. The night returned to darkness again, as if nothing had happened. After doing this, Yi Feng turned around and left. He disappeared from everyone's eyes in the blink of an eye. Everyone was left with a look of amazement. But what no one noticed was that when the light beam dissipated, several black shadows flew out directly through the cracks and flashed past. No more. This is how it ends. The nether demon that caused the whole sky and sea to tremble was solved by Yi Feng like this. The matter that made us fearful was solved by Yi Feng so easily. See, if I hadn't felt so cold now, I would have doubted whether I was dreaming. Yes, and in this case, the things about the world of Warcraft Forest and the Tianai secret realm should be true. Yi Feng can definitely solve them. He is right, no one can solve those things perfectly except him. Yes, the scary man Yi Feng. Quote. At this time, Yi Feng turned around and left. Disappeared from everyone's sight. At this time, everyone slowly came to their senses. Looking at this scene, he said with a look of surprise. The expression is very shocking. Unexpectedly, the matter that caused such a fuss and spread to the entire Tianai could be solved just like that. It ended like this. It really shocked everyone in the live broadcast room. This is especially true when thinking of all the previous rumors. Now it seems, the rumors about the Awakening Stone, the Summoner, the Warcraft Forest, and the Tianai secret realm are all true. Moreover, Yi Feng has half-step B-level strength right after he awakens. I'm afraid, no, it must be true. It can only be true. Thinking of Yi Feng's terrifying fighting power, everyone was amazed. Really, a terrifying man. Especially when they saw Yi Feng's calm appearance even when facing the mayor of Tianai City, everyone was amazed. Young Master Yi has to be young Master Yi, and only he can have this confidence and strength. Cool, and just when everyone in the live broadcast room was shocked. At this time in the scene. Ahem, Mr. Mayor, Yi Feng has been like this since he was a child. Don't. At this time, I watched Yi Feng disappear in the blink of an eye. Yi Tian couldn't help but blinked and coughed lightly. Then he slowly walked forward and looked at the mayor of Tianai, who stayed where he was. He spoke slowly. At the same time, he secretly wiped the sweat from his forehead. Although the mayor in front of him only has the strength of the early A level, his identity is not simple. Of course, this is not the point. The point is, Yi Feng is good at everything, why doesn't he pay attention to interpersonal relationships? Strength is important, but interpersonal relationships are still important. Unless Yi Feng can ignore many people, then it will be a different situation, so don't worry about it. But is it possible? Knowledge determines vision. A farmer will not think that he can become a billionaire one day. Similarly, even if Yi Tian saw Yi Feng's astonishing potential, he would not think that Yi Feng could definitely reach SSS level, stand at the top of the world, or even surpass it. So when Yi Tian saw this scene, he couldn't help but secretly shook his head. I smiled bitterly in my heart. It's all my fault that I didn't talk about this properly before, but who knew Yi Feng could get to this point? It's possible to meet the mayor and even have a conversation. If it were in the past, even if he saw him, it would only be a short walk, so Yi Tian didn't take it to heart. Who would have thought that Yi Feng would reach this point one day? No, it's okay. After all, a genius like him must still have a lot of things to be busy with. I understand. While Yi Tian was thinking secretly, the mayor slowly came back to his senses. After listening to Yi Tian's words, he shook his head and spoke slowly. A serious look on his face. At the end, his face was filled with emotion. You have a good child, brother Yi. At the same time, he patted Yi Tian on the shoulder and said softly. The tone was full of envy. At the same time, he glanced at Mr. Zhang subconsciously. He knew very well that after this incident, Yi Feng would definitely not be limited to Tianai. The imperial capital is the best place to go in Yi Feng. Thinking of this, Mayor Wang looked at Wang Shui, who had come back to his senses and was talking and laughing with Zhao Qing. He couldn't help but shook his head. But it doesn't seem that bad. Thinking of this, Mayor Wang glanced at Zhao Qing and heard that Zhao Qing and Yi Feng knew each other. So does this mean Wang Shui also knows Yi Feng? Thinking of this, Mayor Wang couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. A thoughtful look on his face. At this time, Yi Tian didn't know what Mayor Wang was thinking. He was listening to Mayor Wang's words and watching Mayor Wang's actions. Yi Tian couldn't help but be stunned. Some didn't respond. Is he trying to trick Qinlu? It seems that Tianai is going to have a big shot this time too. Seeing this scene, the dean nodded slightly. Looking at the direction Yi Feng left, whispered softly, a serious look on his face. Just when Yi Tian and others had different expressions, Wang Shui also discovered this scene. Looking at the visitor, I couldn't help but feel happy. Father. He came to Mayor Wang and smiled slightly. He spoke slowly. Zhao Qing on the side also followed. However, before Wang Shui could finish speaking, she saw. I heard that you are very familiar with Master Yi Feng, right? Mayor Wang looked at Wang Shui and said with a smile. Wang Shui. Listening to Mayor Wang's words, Wang Shui couldn't help but be stunned. Are you familiar with that terrifying man who kills enemies without blinking an eye? Why don't you know? Yi Tian. Yeah. At this time, Yi Tian, who was standing aside, couldn't help but blink subconsciously when he saw this scene. A look of confusion on his face. When did my boy become familiar with the mayor's daughter? I do not know how. Could it be that the girl in front of me has chased Yi Feng? When he's not paying attention. Yi Feng didn't know what everyone was thinking at this time. Not interested in knowing either. At this time, when he returned to Yi Mansion, he immediately released the armor state, then closed the door, crossed his legs, and sat up with his eyes closed. Done in one go. His mind was directly immersed in the creation bracelet. Just like the previous time, many magic crystals were consumed. Zhao Shui, who had been waiting for Yi Feng at the door, was a little stunned. Yi Feng looked at Yi Feng, who didn't seem to see him, and walked into Yi Mansion by himself. The outstretched right hand couldn't help but rest a little stiffly. Her hair was fluttering in the wind, and she stood there in a bit of a mess. I am being ignored. Forget it, don't bother him anymore. Then he shook his head and came back to his senses. Chuckled, he murmured softly, then turned and left. It seems that nothing is wrong and he is full of energy. And not long after, Zhao Shui turned around and left. At this moment, a strong breath came from inside the house instantly. Boom! At the same time, two phantoms of armor seemed to appear faintly in Yi Mansion, flashing past. Disappeared quickly. At this time, in Yi Feng's room, Yi Feng looked at the two new labels that lit up on the creation bracelet. Can't help but smile. Success, said softly. Feng, King Kong unlocked. And, ding. The fit of Xingtian armor reaches 90%. It can be said to be a fruitful harvest. At the same time, outside Yi Mansion, Zhang Yi, who hurried back, looked at the sky and frowned slightly. Was that my imagination just now? Sure enough, only fighting is the best way to improve your strength. At this time, in Yi Feng's room, listening to the message from the creation bracelet, Yi Feng couldn't help but smile slightly and said slowly, a smile on his face. It's not surprising that Feng and King Kong can be successfully unlocked. This is what Yi Feng expected. After all, this is one of the important reasons why Yi Feng personally dealt with the nether demon Kusajis and Kuroi. It was an opportunity, so it wasn't a big surprise. It was just the fit of the armor that made Yi Feng a little surprised, but after thinking about it carefully, he was relieved. Improve yourself in battle. In the armor world, which powerful armor summoner didn't become so strong after going through battles again and again? And, although it is only 90%, my current strength is enough to fully exert the full power of the Xingtian armor's primary form. When the compatibility reaches 100%, you can upgrade and transform into the God of War Xingtian. At that time, even if Lufa comes, you will have the power to protect yourself. And by then, you will be considered one of the strongest blue stars. Thinking of this, Yi Feng lowered his head slightly. He looked at his right hand and shook it slightly. Feeling his own strength and the increasingly eye-catching Xingtian armor label on the creation bracelet, he couldn't help but smile softly and spoke slowly. A smile on his face. I don't know which lucky person will experience the full power of the Xingtian armor in its primary state first. But before that, let me try the power of this new armor first. Then Yi Feng seemed to think of something and looked at the labels of Jing'an and Feng beside Xingtian armor. Smile softly. He spoke slowly. Then his mind sank, and his consciousness directly connected to the creation bracelet. Suddenly, a summoner similar to a game console appeared in Yi Feng's hand. Looking at the summoner in his hand, Yi Feng smiled softly. Then he pressed it lightly and shouted softly, Diamond armor, combined. Armor fit. Then a mechanical sound came, and Yi Feng instantly transformed into a diamond armor. Feeling the power of this armor, Yi Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then he lowered his head slightly and looked at his hands, squeezing them slightly. Feel this powerful force. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. This power, it seems different from when I first transformed into Xingtian armor, as if I have already adapted. Could it be? Whispered softly. At the end, he seemed to have thought of something and was released from the state instantly. Then the game console disappeared in an instant, and then the label symbolizing the Feng armor lit up slightly. Suddenly an MP3-like summoner appeared in Yi Feng's hand. Feng armor fusion. Armor fit. Just like transforming into King Kong and Xingtian armor, Yi Feng instantly turned into Feng armor. Feeling the power of Feng armor, Yi Feng couldn't help but nodded secretly. It is as expected. A-level power. Whispered softly. Both are A-level, the same strength level as the Xingtian armor. It seems that the fit of this armor is universal, and there is no need to adapt to each one. Feeling the power of these two armors, Yi Feng lifted his status. Looking at the label symbolizing King Kong, Heing armor, Yi Feng nodded slightly and thought secretly. At this time, Yi Feng suddenly discovered that the labels on the three armors of Feng, King Kong, and Xingtian were very similar or equally bright. This also means that the fit of the armor is the same. The fit of Xingtian armor is the same as the fit of other armors. Apparently it's the same. But yes, after all, power is determined by mental energy. Just like in the armor world, Hooshin can also transform into Shira, although his strength is not as good as that of Emperor Yan and Lu Fa. But it's also very good. So naturally Yi Feng can also bring out the power of Hiei and King Kong very well. This also means that when Yi Feng can be upgraded into the God of War Xingtian, he can also transform into the explosive King Kong and the speedy Den Feking. The strength is greatly enhanced. This looks good. Thinking of this, the corner of Yi Feng's mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. Smiling softly, he spoke slowly. A smile on his face. And more importantly, Yi Feng seemed to have discovered a hidden function of the creation bracelet when he released his transformation. I don't know which family is so lucky to realize this hidden ability. I don't know who is so lucky to experience the power of the new armor, appreciate the power of King Kong, and the speed of Hiei. This can be considered a surprise for those people. I'm afraid none of them thought that there are other armors appearing, and they are not weak. Thinking of this, Yi Feng smiled lightly. This seems good, but I don't know what other people's expressions will be if they find out. I just don't know if the situation with Fang and King Kong will be the same after summoning the 5 elements armor. If not, Yi Feng, are you okay? And while Yi Feng was thinking secretly, a voice suddenly came. It immediately brought Yi Feng back to his senses. Before Yi Feng could open his mouth to say anything, he felt his hands being grabbed. At the same time, a faint fragrance spread into Yi Feng's nose, making Yi Feng come back to his senses instantly. He looked over subconsciously. I saw an attractive young woman looking at me with a worried face. If it wasn't Zhang Yi, who could it be? I saw Zhang Yi grabbing Yi Feng's hands and directly using her powers to check Yi Feng's body. After confirming that nothing was wrong, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then he subconsciously looked around to make sure there was nothing around him before he put down his hands. He breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, the beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but frown, with a look of confusion on his face. Could it be that I just saw it wrong? My nerves have been tense all the time, so I saw it wrong. Thinking back to the 2 phantoms that passed by in a blink of an eye. Zhang Yi couldn't help squeezing her temples and said in a daze. But I didn't care, as long as nothing happened to Yi Feng. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi completely relaxed. Looking at Yi Feng in front of him, he smiled softly. I didn't expect that you who used to be naughty have become so reliable now. Thanks to you this time, otherwise I, Yi Tian, and everyone in Tianai wouldn't be still here. He said with a gentle look. He reached out and touched Yi Feng's head with a smile on his face. At the same time, he subconsciously recalled the envious expressions on his team members' faces. There was pride on his face. Yi Feng couldn't help but blink. I guessed why Zhang Yi was so nervous before. It probably happened when he unlocked it. But it's okay. This is just for myself, by the way. Thinking of this, listening to Zhang Yi's words, Yi Feng nodded slightly and spoke slowly. He looked unconcerned. Seeing this, Zhang Yi wanted to say something. At this moment, a surprised voice suddenly came. It directly attracted the attention of Yi Feng and Zhang Yi. What a good thing. Yi Feng, news just came from Imperial Capital that you were admitted to Imperial Capital College. No, to be precise, Imperial Capital College invited you to study with them. Yi Tian said excitedly. His expression was very exciting. After hearing this, Zhang Yi came back to her senses instantly. His face was instantly filled with joy. When Yi Feng heard this, he looked at Yi Tian and Zhang Yi who were full of joy. A thoughtful look on his face. Imperial College. Imperial College, the top academic institution in Kyushu. Named after the word, Imperial Capital, you can see its importance. It is not simple, it has a pivotal position in Kyushu. It has the richest resources in Kyushu, as well as various masters with profound knowledge and advanced theories. The teaching resources are also top-notch. Naturally, there are countless people who want to enter this school. But what Yi Feng found strange was that generally, if you want to enter this school, you must first enter the highest local school. Then there will be a competition in the school to select the best talents to enter the Imperial College. It can be said that those who can enter the Imperial College are the most qualified, talented and powerful people in the cities of Kyushu. Just like the world in Yi Feng's previous life, but more strict and exaggerated. Therefore, not only the resources of Imperial College, but also the number of students enrolled in each class are much smaller than those of other colleges. But Yi Feng hasn't entered Tianai College yet. I haven't had a competition yet, why did I enter like this? Could it be? Thinking of this, Yi Feng seemed to have received something. Whispered softly. At this moment, a somewhat familiar voice suddenly came, directly attracting the attention of everyone present. He looked over subconsciously. Yes, that's it. I just received a notice from the Imperial Capital. The people above want to let young Master Yuan enter the Imperial Capital Academy to practice. And this is what Imperial College means, this is an invitation letter. I saw Mr. Zhang slowly walking over and looking at this scene. Looking at everyone present, he smiled slightly. He spoke slowly, walked to Yi Tian and took out a piece of letter paper directly from his arms. Then he handed the letter directly to Zhang Yi. Looking at Yi Feng aside, he had a look of emotion on his face. The fact that the letter paper was delivered so quickly shows that the higher-ups really take this matter very seriously. It is estimated that after learning that Yi Feng had half-step B-level strength just after awakening, and after learning about Yi Feng's terrifying combat power and talent, this should have been the idea. Later, after seeing Yi Feng's performance in the Battle of Tianai, he probably made up his mind directly. Don't underestimate the speed of sending letters in this world. This is especially true when there are people with special abilities who are responsible for sending letters. It is estimated that if this letter was sent at such a fast speed, it must be an S-level superpower. Only then could it be delivered in such a short time. And there are only a handful of S-level letter users in Kyushu in the world. It is conceivable that the Imperial College and above attach great importance to Yi Feng in this matter. As for why not send a message on your mobile phone? How can mobile text messages and letters be serious? And this letter is different from others. Others are acceptance letters. The only thing Yi Feng got was the invitation. Not an admission, but an invitation. Just one sentence, attitude and treatment are completely different. The degree of emphasis is naturally different. Obviously, Imperial College has subconsciously raised Yi Feng's status to a very high level, and he has a somewhat peer-to-peer attitude. I never thought that in my lifetime, I would be able to see a big man before he has grown up. It is really a rare thing. Thinking of this, Mr. Zhang whispered softly. He looked at Yi Feng with a deep look on his face. Really, at this time, Zhang Yi didn't know what Mr. Zhang was thinking. After hearing what Mr. Zhang said, Zhang Yi came back to her senses. Put away your emotions. Then he looked at the letter handed over by Mr. Zhang and took it directly. Looked up. There are big, conspicuous letters written on the front. Invitation letter from Imperial College. Looking at these words, Zhang Yi couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Then I started looking directly. When Yi Tian on the side saw this, he approached carefully and calculatedly. Looked up. Look at the seal of the Imperial College at the end. Both Zhang Yi and Yi Tian couldn't help but smile lightly, with smiles on their faces. His face was full of joy. When it was confirmed that it was an invitation letter from Imperial College, Zhang Yi and Yi Tian were obviously very happy. But shouldn't you first enter Tianai College to study, then go through the Tianai College competition, and finally be qualified to enter Imperial College? Then, Zhang Yi seemed to think of something. Looking at Mr. Zhang, he slowly spoke. A look of confusion on his face. Yi Tian came to his senses after hearing this. He subconsciously looked towards Mr. Zhang. When I found out about this before, I just came back to tell the good news. I didn't think too much about it. But now after hearing Zhang Yi's words, he suddenly came back to his senses. Yes, shouldn't you go to Tianai Academy first? Why did you just admit Yi Feng directly? Hey, you Adbi, look at what is written on the front of the letter. This is an invitation. It's not an acceptance letter. Zhang Lao heard this and smiled softly. He shook his head and spoke slowly. A smile on his face. Yes, and how can our Tianai Academy accommodate this great god? He is as powerful as me, the dean, who can teach him? At this time, the dean of Tianai College heard this. He also shook his head and smiled bitterly. Looking at Yi Feng, he said helplessly. And maybe, he is no match for Yi Feng. Recalling Yi Feng's previous battle, the dean shuddered subconsciously. His body trembled. If Yi Feng is really invited in, wouldn't this mean that Tianai College will be demolished? If only the teachers, employees, and students knew that Yi Feng was as powerful as him as the dean. He can't even beat Yi Feng, if he is defeated. Then where to put his face? Even if Yi Feng wants to come in, he will cry and beg Yi Feng not to come in. Hey, let him go and harm those old bones in the imperial capital. Thinking of this, the dean of High Academy thought secretly. He had a hunch that it might happen in a few years. At this time, his current feelings will come back to those in Imperial College. Thinking of this, the dean of Tianai College couldn't help but feel secretly happy. We can't let him feel the pain alone. Invite. After listening to Mr. Zhang's words, Zhang Yi came back to her senses. Whisper softly. Then he looked at the front of the envelope. A thoughtful look on his face. And then after hearing the dean's words, he suddenly understood. So this is all. It's not that I don't want to follow the rules, it's just that I really can't walk. We can only make an exception for Yi Feng. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi and Yi Tian became more and more excited. After all, what parent doesn't want their child to be great? Especially Yi Feng, they didn't think how strong Yi Feng could be before. They also rely on the resources of the two of them so that Yi Feng can live a happy life. But what I didn't expect was that Yi Feng's talent was so powerful, not only the legendary creation talent. Moreover, incidents such as the Warcraft Forest, the Tianai Secret Realm, and even the Tianai Chaos were successively resolved. Now it is even more like Imperial College taking the initiative to invite. Others had to squeeze their way in, but Yi Feng was actively begged by the college to come in. This treatment is completely different. This shocked Zhang Yi and Yi Tian at the same time. So excited again. It is as expected. When Yi Feng heard this, he was not too surprised. The expression on his face was that of course. This is pretty much what he thought. At this time, Mr. Zhang saw this scene. He couldn't help but nodded slightly. Smile softly. After all, his mission when he came to Tianai was to find good candidates and recruit people. Now this task is completed. And it was still a perfect achievement, and he could return to Kyoto. This is also a happy thing for him. Only. Ahem, Master Yi, what do you mean? Would you like to go to Imperial College? I heard there. At this time, Mr. Zhang seemed to have hit something. Looking at Yi Feng who had said nothing from beginning to end, he slowly spoke. A cautious look on his face. At the same time, I was secretly surprised in my heart. Young Master Yi was worthy of being young Master Yi. If other people had encountered this, they would have been so happy. But I didn't expect that Yi Feng remained calm and composed, as if he went to an ordinary school. At the same time, looking at Yi Feng's expression, Mr. Zhang secretly sweated. I'm a little afraid that Yi Feng will say no and refuse directly. After all, Yi Feng is different from other peers in that he has his own ideas. Maybe he will refuse for the first time. Thinking of this, Mr. Zhang couldn't help but look at Yi Feng with a calculating expression. At the same time, he couldn't help but be filled with self-satisfaction. After all, he had done his homework to prevent this. When he came to Yi Mansion, he learned about Yi Feng's hobbies from Yi Tian and prepared a speech. Anyway, it's just deception and all kinds of bragging to take Yi Feng away. Thinking of this, Zhang Laozheng wanted to continue to say something. And at this time, good, go and have a look. It's boring to stay here anyway. Yi Feng heard this and groaned. Then he nodded directly and said, actually, you are considering taking a look. You must know that Imperial College has the best in Kyushu and is famous in the world. Quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. What did you say? After hearing this, Mr. Zhang nodded subconsciously and said. Then he seemed to think of something and reacted. He said with a look of astonishment. His head is a bit unclear. It seems that the development of this matter is different from what he thought. What, don't you want me to go? Yi Feng heard this and smiled softly. He asked with a smile on his face. There was a reason why he went there, and of course, as Yi Feng said, there was no point in staying here anymore. It didn't help him improve his strength. The Imperial College is different. There are a lot of resources there, and the level of the secret realm is also very high. It is very helpful for Yi Feng to improve his strength. So of course I want to go, and I can get to know the world better by the way. Ah, that's not. After hearing this, Mr. Zhang wiped the sweat from his forehead. He said with some shame. Why didn't this kid play his cards according to the routine? His work was in vain. In that case, Yi Feng, you can set off tomorrow morning. Zhao Qing and Wang Shui will go with you then. At this time, the dean of Tianai College said with a smile on his face. Yi Feng, hey, so why are you following me? The next morning, Yi Feng looked at Zhao Qing, who was following him, and there was a girl he had never seen before. I still have some impression of a girl who likes live streaming. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and spoke slowly. Ahem. Teacher Zhao's sister works at Imperial College, so she has someone to take care of her when she goes with you. As for, at this time, the dean of Tianai College felt Yi Feng's gaze. Cough slightly, then he spoke slowly, with a serious look on his face. Finally, he looked at Wang Shui, who was constantly taking selfies and chatting with water friends on live broadcast. His eyebrows were raised. Wang Shui's words are your followers. The kind that helps you carry your luggage. Then he spoke slowly. A serious look on his face. Wang Shui, who was playing with her mobile phone, hey. Listening to the dean's words, his face was filled with confusion. When did I become Yi Feng's follower? Or the kind that carries luggage? But I thought of my father's instructions. Wang Shui finally came to her senses and put away her phone. Came to Yi Feng and smiled slightly. Extend your right hand. Hello, Yi Feng. My name is Wang Shui, and I'll spare your trouble for the rest of my trip to Kyoto. Hope we get along well. Showing his white teeth, he said with a smile. And I actually quite admire you. I was also there. Then he seemed to think of something and leaned into Yi Feng's ear. He spoke slowly. Feeling the heat in his ears, Yi Feng couldn't help but be stunned. Then he came back to his senses and smiled softly. I know that. He shook hands with Wang Shui directly. Then his eyes turned to Zhao Shui, who was standing next to Zhang Yi. Come on, I will also work hard to go to Imperial College by then. Wait for me. At this time, Zhao Shui also noticed Yi Feng's sight. Can't help but smile. He made a fist. He spoke slowly. With a smile on his face, he said the last word with determination in his eyes. Yi Feng was stunned. Then he subconsciously recalled what happened before. Looking at the girl in front of me, in order to fulfill Zhang Yi's instructions, she was specially postponed to her own group. The girl who was willing to take on the trouble and fight Wang Ao without knowing the situation at that time. He couldn't help but nodded. Then he followed Mr. Zhang and walked directly into the plane, heading towards the imperial capital. Only. Looking at Zhao Qing with a serious face on the left, he looked at Wang Shui, who was playing with his mobile phone. Yi Feng had a strange look on his face. A companion, an attendant, and an old man. This trip to the imperial capital is really inexplicable. How can I feel like I'm seeing you in a soy sauce way? Thinking of this, Yi Feng had a strange expression on his face. At this time, Wang Shui didn't think too much and took a few photos casually. Posted in the live broadcast space. Let's go to Imperial College. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. What Yi Feng and others did not notice was that when Yi Feng stepped on the plane, at this time in a hidden corner, a figure wrapped in black clothes, with only his eyes exposed, was staring at Yi Feng with a face filled with resentment. Yi Feng, he said coldly. Then he disappeared directly. Quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. At this time, on the plane, in the first class cabin, Yi Feng seemed to notice something and couldn't help but frown slightly. Subconsciously he turned his head and looked over, looking out through the window. At this time, with Yi Feng's eyesight, he can naturally see the situation below. But except for Yi Tian, Zhang Yi and others who were paying attention to themselves with serious faces. And since Tianai just finished the battle last night, there were not many people coming and going at this time. So if there is someone with suspicious behavior, Yi Feng will naturally be able to find it. But at this time, Yi Feng did not find anyone acting suspiciously, which made Yi Feng frown. Could it be? Then Yi Feng seemed to think of something, stretched out his left hand and turned it slightly. Suddenly a camera appeared directly in Yi Feng's hand. Then he looked directly out the window. After all, the Xingtian armor summoner has the ability to see through other people's disguises. So if someone is really looking at me, then they will definitely see it. However, what confused Yi Feng was that no figure was seen in the Xingtian armor summoner at this time. It's as if it doesn't exist. Nothing at all. Illusion. Or is it that the other party has left? Looking at this scene, Yi Feng murmured softly, thinking secretly. Then he shook his head and slowly recovered his mind. No matter whether the other party exists or not, whether he left early or not. Yifeng doesn't care as long as the other party dares to come. He dares to kill the other party. Let the opponent taste the power of the three armors of Xingtian plus Fang plus King Kong. Thinking of this, Yifeng didn't think about it anymore. I sat down straight and was about to close my eyes and rest my mind. At this moment, a beautiful face came over and appeared in Yifeng's eyes. Yifeng, what were you doing just now? Are you taking pictures as a souvenir? Wang Shui blinked her big eyes, looked at Yifeng and spoke slowly. A look of curiosity on his face. At the end, Yi Tian and others took a look below. He couldn't help but smile slightly and looked at Yifeng seriously. Oh, really? Are you sure? Yifeng heard this and looked at Wang Shui in front of him. He smiled slightly and grinned. Said softly. Wang Shui shivered inexplicably. Inexplicably, it reminds me of Yifeng's summoner, which seems to have the ability to immobilize people. His face turned pale. Although she believed in Yifeng's personality, she, Wang Shui, didn't want to experience the feeling of being unable to move. He couldn't help but shook his head quickly. No, no. I'm just kidding. Keep going, keep going. Hee, he said with a serious face. At the end, he smiled slightly at Yifeng. He blinked and then sat back in his seat. Continue playing with your phone. Seeing this, Yifeng just smiled softly. Without saying anything else, he took back the summoner with his backhand, closed his eyes, and rested his mind. Before heading to the imperial capital, have a good sleep. These two living treasures. At this time, Zhao Qing, who was sitting behind Yifeng, saw this scene. He shook his head and chuckled. At the same time, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. I really didn't expect Yifeng to have such a side and even make fun of people. It was completely different from the previous battle. It seems that he is not as cold as I thought. It's still very humane. Thinking of this, Zhao Qing smiled slightly. He spoke slowly. Then he closed his eyes, and the scene suddenly became quiet. Only Mr. Zhang was left looking outside, wondering what he was thinking. And Wang Shui, who was playing with her mobile phone and chatting with water friends. I was just scared to death. I saw Wang Shui making a casual comment in her live broadcast fan group. Sent up. At the same time, he patted his chest with a lingering fear on his face. It seemed like he was really scared. At the same time, his eyes were full of expectation, hoping that someone would come to comfort him. This is a fan group she built herself. Not many, only 30. They are all cute sisters, some of whom have made videos. She likes live broadcasts, but she wants to start live broadcasts just because she is afraid of being alone. Chat with other people, but this does not mean that Wang Shui likes others to pester her. Other boys who want to join her are directly rejected by Wang Shui with a click. As for girls' live broadcasts, naturally most of them are boys, and there are very few of the opposite gender. But if you pay attention to her, you will naturally be a true fan. Even if it isn't, that's not bad. So although she is very popular, she only has 3 fan base. But the relationship between them is very good. I usually talk about anything here. So Wang Shui naturally posted these words to the fan group. By the way, he gave all the members a thoughtful shout out. After finishing these words, Wang Shui's eyes were filled with anticipation. Look at the phone screen quietly, waiting for his sisters and caring about himself. Then she told Yifeng about bullying her in an exaggerated manner. Seek comfort. She believes that her lovely fans and sisters will definitely comfort her. After all, their relationship is solid. However, what confused Wang Shui was 1 second passed, 2 seconds passed, 1 minute passed. There was no movement from his fan base, as if all his fans had left him in an instant. It looked like it took off the powder in an instant. This made Wang Shui instantly dumbfounded, with a confused look on his face. What happened to them? Are you all busy? But something was wrong. Wang Shui looked at the time. 9 o'clock. This is the time Wang Shui has made an appointment with her fans, and they usually chat at this time. Even if you are busy, there are always people online. How could there be no one there? Didn't you receive it? Thinking of this, Tian gritted his teeth. Whisper softly. Then all the members of IT gave a crazy +1 at the same time. She didn't believe it. There was no one. In the end, Wang Tian paid off, after Wang Shui reached the 30th member. Finally someone responded to her message. Seeing this scene, I felt the vibration from my phone. Wang Shui's face was filled with joy. How pitiful she was, how hard she had just been. Finally someone responded to her. However, when Wang Shui lowered her head and looked at the screen, she looked at the reply message. Wang Shui's face instantly froze and turned to stone. I just saw, Sister Wang, are you with Master Yi now? Seeing the message sent by this person, Wang Shui's expression immediately solidified. Especially the fan base that seemed to have opened up a topic and became somewhat quiet for a moment. At this time, something exploded. It became extremely lively. Yes, Sister Wang, is Master Yi Feng really with you? Yes, are you following Mr. Yi now? How do you know each other? I've never heard of you talking about it before. Where are you now? Look at the live broadcast room that has become so lively. Wang Shui became silent instantly. Seeing that no one cares about themselves, but instead cares about the bully and their own culprit. Wang Shui looked depressed. However, I still typed out the word, yes, and sent it out. Then Wang Shui seemed to think of something. Then utter a sentence. And he's right next to me, we're on a plane now. Then he seemed to think of something, and then continued to type a sentence in the dialogue box, he bullied me, he just. However, before Wang Shui could finish writing, Wang Shui responded. Suddenly Wang Shui's fan base exploded and became extremely lively. Wang Shui was stunned and subconsciously deleted the words. It's better not to say this, otherwise I'm afraid that I will be beaten to death by my fans. I saw, oh my god, it's true, sure enough, Sister Wang is following Mr. Yi. What I said is right, right. As he spoke, he sent out a picture. When Wang Shui took a look, wasn't this the photo he posted in the live broadcast space? I saw that this photo was thoughtfully made with a small red circle. After a closer look, it was undoubtedly Yi Feng. No wonder they would ask this, so does she, Wang Shui, shoot herself in the foot? Thinking of this, Wang Shui smiled bitterly. Look, am I right? Indeed, in this case, young Master Yi is right next to Sister Wang. How enviable. Yeah, I'm envious, why isn't that person me? By the way, did Sister Wang say anything about bullying? Seeing this scene, Wang Shui wiped the sweat from his forehead. Decisively withdraw the message and delete the content originally intended to be sent. Sent a sentence. No, I'm joking. I knew that young Master Yi was so good, how could he bully others? Sister Wang is just joking with us, am I right? Just ignore her. Sister Wang, don't say thank you to me. If you really want to thank me, then tell us, is Master Yi really going to Imperial College? Yes, yes, that is Imperial College. The best school in Kyushu. Yi Feng just go there directly. Tell us about it, and tell us more about Mr. Yi by the way. Handmaid. Looking at this scene, Wang Shui felt for a moment that this was Yi Feng's fan group and that she was just an administrator. But looking at the strong demands of his fans, Wang Shui sighed lightly. Here's the thing, tell me everything you know about what happened at that time. At the same time, his face was full of depression. I was obviously just looking for comfort, why did it become like this? Become a commentator. And just when Wang Shui was chatting with a depressed face, the plane was quiet and harmonious. At the airport at this time. Let's go, it's time. Seeing the plane completely disappear before his eyes, Yi Tian was the first to come back to his senses. Looking at everyone present, he slowly spoke. A serious look on his face. Yes, we need to rebuild after the war. After all, the movement caused by the Netherworld demon has made Tianai's secret realm very unstable. It needs to be strengthened. Just be on guard. Quote. At this time, the dean also came to his senses. Listen to Yi Tian's words. He nodded and spoke slowly. A serious look on his face. Let's go back. When Yi Feng comes back, let him see a more beautiful and harmonious sky and sea. A better home. Zhang Yi came to her senses after hearing this. He nodded and said softly. Then he turned around and left with Zhao Shui. Seeing this, Yi Tian and others followed closely. At this moment, another plane heading to Tianjin City, a city adjacent to the imperial capital, had also set sail. However, at this moment, Yi Tian seemed to notice a black shadow flash past and disappear into the plane. Yi Tian couldn't help but pause. Subconsciously he turned his head and looked over. But nothing was found. Is it an illusion? He couldn't help but touched his head and said with some confusion. He didn't say much after that. Then left here. Tianai's matter can be considered to have come to an end, and a short-term peace should be achieved. Next they have to actively build Tianai. Huh. We're here. I don't know how long it took when Yifeng woke up. They have arrived at the imperial capital, the 9 most luxurious cities. Looking at the tall buildings through the window, even a random passerby, a sweeping lady, has the initial level of strength. With a strong look, Yifeng couldn't help but murmured softly. However, before he finished speaking, Yifeng noticed a strange gaze looking towards him. Yifeng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He looked over subconsciously. Zhang Shuizhang was staring at him with a resentful face, as if Yifeng had done something unforgivable. Yifeng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What's wrong? He couldn't help but ask aloud. Nothing, I'm fine. Wang Shui heard this and said seriously. Then he got off the plane directly. Yifeng heard about it and didn't say anything. He also followed Zhao Qing and Mr. Zhang off the plane. Only, what did you do to Wang Shui? At this time, Wang Shui looked at Yifeng with a look of resentment all the way. Zhao Qing couldn't help but move closer to Yifeng and said curiously. Did Yifeng do anything while he was sleeping? How could I know? You have to ask her yourself this. Maybe it's her who's coming. Yifeng heard this and shook his shoulders casually. He said with a nonchalant look. Anyway, Yifeng did nothing. Only Mr. Yi will take the blame. And what he cares more about now than this is this building. At this time, the building looked a bit like mercenaries, and there were very strong but young people coming and going. Yifeng said with some surprise. Don't tell him, this is Imperial College. This is the Kyushu Sanctuary. When the mutation occurs, this will appear. Anyone who enters Kyushu Imperial College must come here, because this place will rate your qualifications and potential. The stronger your potential, the higher your ranking, which will not only increase your reputation, but also provide you with very high-level rewards. As for where this building came from and why it has such functions, this has always been a mystery. Although many people want to figure it out and study it, there has been no progress. At this time, Mr. Zhang saw this scene. Explain in a timely manner. He spoke as he led Yifeng in. Ling Yifeng nodded secretly. Reward. Every student who becomes the Imperial College is given a place as a proud person, so he has the opportunity and must come here, so you will go to that holy place later. At this time, Mr. Zhang was still performing his duties and explaining in great detail. At the same time, he pointed at the crystal-clear stone not far away. However, before he finished speaking, he stopped. Before Yifeng could step forward, the calm stone suddenly lit up and shot straight into the sky. At the same time, a list appears instantly. Yifeng, Creation Talent, Armor Superpower. Number 1 in the Kyushu Genius ranking. Seeing this scene, everyone coming and going stopped instantly. He looked at this scene in astonishment, his expression was very shocking. Mr. Zhang was just stunned on the spot. Looking at this scene, I was stunned. Although I know you are number 1. But isn't this vision too exaggerated? Yifeng looked at this scene, looked at the creation bracelet on his right hand, and thought thoughtfully. And there was an explosion outside. Never appeared before. Is it because of the creation bracelet? At this moment, looking at this somewhat exaggerated scene, I recalled what Mr. Zhang said earlier. Yifeng looked thoughtful. Then Yifeng looked thoughtfully at the creation bracelet on his right hand that was twinkling with light. But there wasn't much emotion. After all, this was what Yifeng expected. After all, with his Yifeng creation talent, coupled with his increasing familiarity with armor, and his increasingly powerful willpower, his combat power is also quite powerful. It is normal to have such a result. If not, Yifeng would be surprised. As for what Mr. Zhang said, nothing was found by studying this building, and its origin has always been a mystery. Unable to research successfully, Yifeng didn't care or take it to heart. It is estimated that this is an unsolved mystery just like the emergence of dark forces. No matter how they are in other worlds, they will definitely have crystal stones when they come to this world. Just like why secret realms appear, they are all secrets of the world. It's normal to not know, and Yifeng doesn't think much of it anyway. In the future, when I become stronger, I will have the opportunity to explore the world and find the truth of the world. Therefore, Yi Feng's expression was indifferent at this time, and he looked around and took stock of the surrounding environment. Zhao Qing on the side slowly came to his senses when he saw this scene. This result was not a big surprise, or in other words, none of the people present were too surprised. After all, Yi Feng's strength is obvious to all. Being ranked first among the geniuses in Kyushu is quite normal. It couldn't be more normal. After all, whose genius has half a step B-level strength as soon as he wakes up? In just a few days, he has the strength of an early A level. Can many major events be settled one after another? It's just him, Yi Feng. That is to say, the information has not been completely disseminated, otherwise the people at the scene would not be so sensational. But, I really don't know what you think, that something that everyone longs for can be so indifferent in front of you. It's like a trivial thing. At this time, Zhao Qing saw this scene. He couldn't help but shook his head and spoke slowly to Yi Feng. A serious look on his face. Wang Shui on the side came to his senses instantly when he heard this. He subconsciously looked towards Yi Feng, his eyes full of curiosity. Has this person really seen through everything? Or is it just indifferent on the surface but happy on the inside? Thinking of this, Wang Shui looked at Yi Feng more seriously. His expression was very serious. Oh, what do you say? For example, Yi Feng heard and felt the expressions and sights of the two women. Yi Feng couldn't help but smile softly and spoke slowly. A smile on his face. For example, Imperial College is an institution that every Kyushu native and even people from other countries want to attend. I don't know how many people want to squeeze in. EVROP. And I don't know how many people are greedy for this Kyushu Genius ranking list. But I don't know how many people are not even qualified, let alone ranked so high. Listening to Yi Feng's words, Zhao Qing couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Then he slowly said, looking at Yi Feng seriously. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. However, before Zhao Qing could finish speaking, Yi Feng said something lightly. Zhao Qing was immediately speechless. Do those people include you? Yi Feng was neither smiling nor angry, looking at Zhao Qing and speaking softly. Looked straight at Zhao Qing. Zhao Qing was told to speak directly. I do not know what to say. After all, this is indeed the case, not only for her, but also for Wang Shui. If it weren't for Yi Feng, it would have been impossible for the two of them to come here, let alone enter the Imperial College. So I really have no qualifications. But does she care? No, I still feel a little envious in my heart, but the point is. Hey, I really don't know what you think. Sometimes I wonder if you don't have a surprised expression and keep looking expressionless. After all, this is number one. This is something that many people cannot do. You are definitely the first in Kyushu. You must be famous in JoJo now, everyone knows it, after all. Shaking his head, Zhao Qing slowly came back to his senses. Looking at Yi Feng, he sighed lightly. Said softly. Wang Shui on the side heard this and nodded subconsciously. A look of approval on his face. Zhao Qing is right, that's it. However, before Zhao Qing could finish speaking, he was directly interrupted by Yi Feng. I don't know if everyone will know. But what I know is that things are not as good as you think. Yi Feng listened to Zhao Qing's words and shook his head. Smiling softly, his expression condensed. He spoke slowly. With a serious look on his face, he finally subconsciously looked around and even outside. What? Listening to Yi Feng's words, Zhao Qing and Wang Shui came to their senses instantly. He said subconsciously in surprise. Then he turned his head and followed Yi Feng's gaze and looked around. However, look at this and listen carefully. The two girls couldn't help but frown slightly. At this time, when Zhao Qing and Yi Feng were communicating, everything was already going crazy. In other words, after the dazzling light appeared on the holy stone, it directly attracted the attention of everyone present. It also directly attracted the attention of everyone outside, although the light did not last long. Then gradually dissipated, but it still attracted people, and suddenly more and more people entered the sanctuary. Look towards the sacred stone. And this time, as soon as I entered, I was attracted by the list of sacred stones. There are more than a dozen lines on the list. There are several names in one line, emitting red light. And above this row, there is also the top row that exudes gold. At this time, a line of words has appeared. Everyone was directly attracted by that line of writing. Yi Feng, ranked first in the Kyushu Genius ranking, has special power, armor. Looking at the bright characters, no matter the people who just came in out of curiosity, or the people who were in the sanctuary at this time. At this moment, I was stunned. Stunned in place. Looking at that line of big characters, I felt like my head was buzzing. Stunned. Number 1. That's number 1, I read that right. There is someone who can be recognized by the Holy Stone as the number 1. After how many years, our Kyushu finally has a number 1 genius recognized by the Holy Stone. Oh my god, I'm afraid I'm not dreaming. The first world in Kyushu, Yi Feng. By the way, who is Yi Feng? I heard my girlfriend mentioned him. He seems to be the child of someone with a high status. He is known as Yi Feng and Young Master. Is this like this? When you say that, it seems that I have some impression. No, is this the point? The point is, haven't you noticed? Yi Feng's talent is the top talent in the legend of creation talent. No wonder he is considered number 1 by Holy Stone. Who can withstand this talent? No, is this your point? The point is that Yi Feng's power is armor. He chose armor. It is recognized as the worst superpower in the world. How could it be this superpower? I'm afraid I saw it wrong. No, you read that right. The word, armor, is correct. Finally, my powers from Kyushu are about to emerge. Don't you need to rely on the barbarians' superpowers? Do you think there is a possibility that there is something wrong with the Holy Stone? At this time, I looked at the bright characters. Everyone couldn't help but wipe their eyes and said with doubts on their faces. I doubted whether they saw it wrong, but no matter what they did, the facts proved that it was true. Still the same words. Yi Feng, the number 1 genius in Kyushu, has supernatural armor. This shocked everyone and started talking about it. There are 5 holy stones in the Blue Star world. They are ministers of the 5 countries of Kyushu, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Japan, and Zhong. Corresponding to the 5 major countries with their own unique abilities, it also symbolizes the 5 major powers in the Blue Star world. However, Kyushu is one of the 5 most powerful countries in the world. What is different from other countries is that the other 4 countries all have their own top geniuses. But only Kyushu has never been there, only second, not first. Even though people with SSS level talents, awakened paladins, priests and even knights have appeared one after another. Still only ranked second, but I didn't expect that in Kyushu, when everyone in the world thought that Kyushu was impossible and would not have the number 1 genius. I never thought it would appear now. It really made everyone excited. Especially when I saw that Yi Feng turned out to be the legendary creation talent. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. Only someone with this kind of talent can be worthy of the title of number 1. However, before everyone could get excited for a long time, they suddenly saw the standard behind it. Superpower, armor. Seeing these words, everyone froze on the spot. What? Armor? Isn't this the being who was labeled the weakest and most incompetent by Yingzhong and the others? Even many of them think so. How could it be armor? Are you sure they got it right? They couldn't help but talk a lot, looking very surprised. Then many people became even more excited, thinking that Kyushu was about to rise. This is a good thing. But more people think that this holy stone is broken. Otherwise, why had the holy stone, which had been silent all this time, not only moved a lot, but also appeared first for the first time? Immediately, the style of the scene suddenly changed and it was plunged into huge discussions. Tisk, 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 you have been obsessed with spiritual practice and have not paid attention to things on the internet. In addition, there is no announcement from God, so I am afraid that you are still in the dark. Young Master Yi has achieved half-step B-level strength just after he awakened. He has also solved many things and is now at the beginning of the level. Haha, you also said that there was no announcement above. How can I be sure that you are not spreading the rumor? And even if it is true, doesn't this make it more certain that the armor is weak? This is overdrafting the potential, overdrafting Yi Feng's talent. He has half-step B-level strength as soon as he wakes up, then. If you soon have A-level strength, you may be overdrafting your potential. He is on the wrong side in this life. He will probably never reach a level, and he will only be S level if he survives. I would say that the priesthood is the strongest. It is said that you can now summon angels. Then what do you think is going on with this holy stone? There is no way that the holy stone can also come from. Haha, it's broken. Listening to the discussions around them, Zhao Qing and Wang Shuishuo couldn't help but frown. Especially when I see those people who crazily advocate the superpowers of other countries and crazily belittle the superpowers of Kyushu. It's getting more and more wrinkled. These guys. He couldn't help but murmur softly. It's normal, because some people only want to see what they want to see and hear what they want to hear. No matter what the facts are, there will be many reasons to refute you. Obviously many of us in Kyushu are like this. At this time, Zhao Qing and Wang Shui could not wait to say something angrily. At this time, a voice suddenly came, directly attracting the attention of Zhao Qing and Wang Shui present. Subconsciously he turned his head and looked over. I saw that Mr. Zhang had come to his senses at this time and walked over slowly. Looking at the scene in front of him, he slowly spoke. He was really shocked by the holy stone before. Although he knew that Yifeng was very strong, he must be the first one. After all, Mr. Zhang can be sure that Yifeng is definitely the most talented person he has ever seen. Isn't this the first place? Is it the third place? But I didn't expect that the movement would be so loud. This was the first time that the holy stone appeared on its own initiative before Yifeng came close or even touched it. This is also the first time he has seen this. If he hadn't been there in person, it would be difficult to believe this. What's more, these are people with deep-rooted ideas. I couldn't help but sigh softly. Yes, let's report it first. Too lazy to argue with these people. Zhao Qing came to his senses instantly after hearing this. He nodded and said softly, "Then I wanted to leave here." However, at this moment, Zhao Qing suddenly realized that Yifeng seemed to have said nothing from beginning to end. It seems that he is waiting for something and watching something. This made Zhao Qing startled and he stopped subconsciously. He turned around and looked over. When he saw it, Zhao Qing suddenly noticed that 5 people were coming over. As these 5 people appeared, the scene instantly became quiet. Then the man in the middle slowly stepped forward and looked at Yifeng. His expression condensed slightly and his eyes narrowed slightly. Yifeng. Then, who is that? What a powerful aura, why don't you say anything? Are you stupid because of your cultivation? You don't even know it. This man is young Master Han Binghan of the Han family in Kyoto. He is famous and powerful. He is only 20, but he has peak A-level strength at such a young age. It is a powerful SS-level talent steel armor. Ranked 10th in the Kyushu Genius rankings. The remaining 4 are just followers. And this person is cruel and arrogant. He has perverted jealousy and hatred towards people who are stronger and younger than him. He is eyeing the throne of the number 1 in Kyushu, and even has a pathological obsession. It is said that he does not hesitate to collude with other people for this purpose, and has done countless evil things. But although I know it well, I can't find any evidence. It's like I know that you killed someone, but I can't prove that you killed someone, and I can only do nothing. I have to say that this is also the case in our era. What a tragedy. So young Master Han is still alive and well, but now Yifeng has ascended to this throne ahead of schedule and has become the number 1 genius in Kyushu. This undoubtedly touched young Master Han's inverse scale. No, Yifeng had just woken up, and young Master Han appeared. I guess this man named Yifeng is in danger. Shuga, that's it. I understand, thank you, and I'd like to say you're welcome by the way. Why? Because I don't think you will live long. I don't know whether Mr. Yifeng Yi will receive the lunch box, but what I know is that you will definitely receive the lunch box, so I'm afraid you won't have time to say it, so I told you. Because Mr. Han is so cruel, if you just tell the truth, do you think people will let you go? Brother, you are a good man. In return, I will take care of your wife and daughter. You can go in peace. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. At this time, look at the person coming. Feeling the powerful aura of these 5 people, especially the one standing in the middle, the aura is even more powerful. Although there is always a smile on his face, it gives an inexplicable weird feeling and chill. His body couldn't help but tremble. Can't help but whisper. When most people saw this scene, they subconsciously took a few steps back. A look of awe on his face. He obviously knew the person very well, and his eyes could not help but be filled with fear and awe. But there are also some people who don't know this person and see this scene. He couldn't help but frown. Why did this place, which used to be so nice and lively, suddenly become so weirdly quiet? Can't help but whisper. But then a kind-hearted man with long hair and a pale face explained. These people all came back to their senses, with expressions of surprise on their faces. It turns out to be a sheep. He is powerful, talented, has a profound background and is ruthless. A werewolf, indeed a werewolf. No wonder so many people are afraid of him, that's why. They couldn't help but subconsciously take a few steps back. A look of awe. At the same time, his eyes were full of admiration for the long-haired man who explained. What a warrior! The man couldn't help but touch his head, with a confused look on his face. Why are these people looking at themselves like this? Didn't I just talk about common sense, but why did I look at myself like this? It's so embarrassing. Finally, someone couldn't stand it anymore and kindly reminded me. Only then did this dear friend come back to his senses. The already pale face became even paler at this moment. His body couldn't help but tremble. Ruined. Only then did I realize that I had just been in a big disaster. He couldn't help but look at it and backed away. He ignored the strong man who was teasing him and left the place cautiously due to the crowd. Terrified. When the people around him saw this, they moved closer to this man intentionally or unintentionally to cover him from leaving here. Obviously, I still admire this dear man's brave behavior. At the same time, he couldn't help but turn his gaze to Yifeng, his eyes full of curiosity. Obviously everyone present is also very curious. Faced with this situation, what will young Master Yifeng do? Will you give up when faced with difficulties? So that's it, Master Han Binghan. I didn't expect that I would meet the big forces in Kyoto when I first came to Kyoto. At this time, Wang Shui also came to his senses. Listening to the discussions of the people around him, his beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but frown slightly. He spoke slowly. Then looking at Han Bing who was looking at Yifeng, he subconsciously leaned towards Yifeng. He looked at the other person warily. Snort. Are you Yifeng? I've heard of you, and I'm also paying attention to things in the deep sea. You are stronger than I thought. Yifeng, Master Yi from the deep sea. At this time, Han Bing naturally heard the comments from the people around him. But he didn't take it to heart, he just glanced at the person next to him gently. Seeing this, the man nodded slightly. Then decisively and his companions turned around and left. Suddenly, the 5 people turned into 3 people. Then Han Bing smiled slightly, looked at Yifeng and spoke slowly. A smile on his face. As if he didn't care about what just happened, he looked at Yifeng seriously. At the same time, halfway through speaking, he subconsciously looked at the holy stone. At this time, the holy stone has converged its light and is no longer emitting light. But the line above is still very conspicuous. Looking at this scene, Han Bing couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. Then he said the last thing and looked towards Yifeng again. Staring straight at Yifeng. At the same time, he stretched out his right hand towards Yifeng, smiling brightly. It gives people an inexplicable sense of gentleness. But when the people around him saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel inexplicably cold. Surprised and uncertain. When Yifeng saw this scene and looked at Han Bing's right hand, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He didn't say much after that. He just nodded slightly and shook hands with Han Bing. Seeing this scene, Han Bing couldn't help but grin slightly. Then he exerted force, but nothing happened to Yifeng. Han Bing couldn't help but frown deeply. I never imagined that this person's physical fitness would be so good. I couldn't help but want to use my powers, but at this moment a voice suddenly came. I saw. Hanbing. Yifeng is a student of Imperial College. Please respect yourself. At this time, Mr. Zhang also came back to his senses and looked at Han Bing. He spoke slowly, a serious look on his face. Han Bing couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Ah, who isn't? He couldn't help but said coldly. But he still took back his right hand. A smile on his face. But the Imperial Capital Academies are allowed to fight freely. And anyone who is on the genius ranking list can also have friendly discussions. As Yi Feng's senior, it's not too much to have friendly discussions with the new students. Especially I heard that Mr. Yi is different from us. Others are admitted, but only Yi Feng is invited. He was invited here. This is even more true. Don't worry, I will reach the same level as Mr. Yi. Then Han Bing seemed to think of something without waiting for Mr. Zhang to say something. Then he spoke, a smile on his face. Especially after he said that, his eyes were staring straight at Yi Feng. Full of smiles. Although he was smiling, when he spoke, my eyes couldn't help but be filled with coldness. After all, not even he, or the entire Kyushu, is treated like this. This made Han Bing feel very dissatisfied. And listening to Han Bing's words, everyone around him couldn't help but be stunned. His mouth opened subconsciously. There was a look of shock and horror on his face. Did they hear it right? Was Yi Feng invited? Imperial College. At the same time, a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. No wonder Yi Feng would appear here, no wonder Yi Feng would come here. So this is awe. Thinking of this, everyone present looked astonished. His eyes were full of wonder. Snort. How is it? What do you think? At this moment, he felt the startling looks of the people around him. Han Bing smiled slightly, then looked at Yi Feng and continued. His fists were clenched subconsciously. This. Okay. When Mr. Zhang heard this, he couldn't help but frown. Naturally, I guessed what Han Bing was thinking and couldn't help but want to say something. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly came. Everyone subconsciously turned their heads and looked over. Yi Feng said lightly. Seeing Yi Feng's straightforward scene, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. I never expected Yi Feng to be so confident. Even Han Bing's eyes couldn't help but be filled with surprise. Many of the rhetoric originally prepared immediately lost their effect at this time. Han Bing couldn't help but feel a little dazed. He just stood there stunned for a while and didn't say a word for a long time. Sure enough, I knew it would be like this. At this time, only Zhao Qing had such an expression on his face. No big surprise, but he said it as if it was true. At the same time, he shrugged his shoulders with a look of helplessness on his face. At the same time, he couldn't help but look at Han Bing with a look of silence. Those who were enemies with Yi Feng seemed to have no good end. This made Han Bing frown slightly and glance at Zhao Qing. Didn't say anything. But come back to your senses. Turning to look at Yi Feng. Okay, when? Afternoon or tomorrow? He spoke. 3 days later. Okay, then. Quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. Han Bing heard this and nodded. Said subconsciously. However, halfway through, he seemed to have thought of something. His expression was startled, looking at Yi Feng in shock. I really didn't expect Yi Feng to say this. Normal people shouldn't nod when they say this. The faster the fight, the better. Especially now in this public situation. This made Han Bing feel like he was being tricked. Yi Feng's next words gave up this idea. But it also made Han Bing inexplicably angry. I saw. Yes, because I just came to the imperial capital. I want to take a look around and get familiar with the imperial capital. So 3 days. The time is just right. Yi Feng said matter-of-factly. A look of indifference. Listening to Yi Feng's words, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. Originally, they were shocked that Yi Feng would agree to this. You must know that Han Bing is the top 500 A-level peak. And he has 2 more years of combat experience than Yi Feng. Even if you are at the same level, your experience is still a flaw. Moreover, this person is very cunning, and he may not necessarily tell the truth. He couldn't help but shook his head subconsciously. Yi Feng is still too young. However, they didn't wait for them to come to their senses. As a result, I suddenly heard Yi Feng's words again. They were immediately dumbfounded. I do not know what to say. How little attention is paid to the other party. But yes, after all, people are full of hostility, so there is no need to be so polite. But it's not easy to come here. I can only say that he is indeed Mr. Yi. Good. See you in 3 days at the battlefield. At this time Han Bing also came back to his senses and stopped laughing. And he took a deep look at Yi Feng, nodded and said. Then he turned around and left. I hope you can still be so calm after 3 days. Let's go and visit the imperial capital. Watching Han Bing leave, Yi Feng looked at Mr. Zhang and said, "Didn't you say you want to get acquainted with each other? We haven't finished the introduction yet." Wang Shui couldn't help but blinked after hearing this. He said with a curious look on his face, "No, I just don't want to fight these 2 days. So you can say it casually, you can get familiar with it anytime, now let's go look around." Who knew he would believe it? Yi Feng heard this, waved his hand and said, "In the end, the sun face is innocent. The ice has not gone far. Everyone, after all, you waited until they were far away before talking." 3 days passed in an instant. 3 days later. The northern suburbs of the imperial capital, the battlefield. At this time many people were gathered here. Very lively. After all, Han Bing, the famous genius in Kyoto, wants to fight Yi Feng from the deep sea. This is really a strange thing. They couldn't help but come over and watch, wondering what else they could learn. Snort, I didn't expect you to actually come. At this time, looking at Yi Feng with a calm face. Han Bing narrowed his eyes slightly and snorted coldly. He spoke. However, what made Han Bing a little dumbfounded was that Yi Feng ignored him. Instead, he stretched out his hands to care for himself. Then 3 things appeared in an instant. Han Bing couldn't help but look carefully. It's a camera, a game console and an MP3 player. Cao Nian, I'll give you a discount. You can pick any one of these 3. Yi Feng spoke slowly. Camera, game console, MP3, which one do you choose? What did you say? At this time, Han Bing listened to Yi Feng's words. Look at the 3 things in Yi Feng's hand. Cameras, game consoles and music instruments MP3. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch, and his face turned dark. Said with some black lines. His face is a little gloomy. In an instant, he had to wonder if he had heard wrong. It wasn't just Han Bing who was stunned at this time. At this time, everyone present saw this scene. I couldn't help but look stunned. His face was filled with a dazed look. At this time, everyone looked very expectant, especially after learning about Yi Feng's various achievements and the attitude of Imperial College towards Yi Feng. Even more so, looking forward to this battle. If other people fought against the ice, everyone would still look down upon them. You may even feel that the other party is looking for death, and it will be a battle without any suspense. But after learning about Yi Feng's situation, everyone is still looking forward to this battle. It's something worth looking forward to. There is endless discussion about this. They were full of expectations for this competition, and everyone was discussing whether Yi Feng or Han Bing would win. Obviously, even though Shengxi believes that Yi Feng is the #1 genius in Kyushu, there are still many people who don't think so. Hence this discussion. However, before they could finish expressing their opinions, they heard Yi Feng's voice. And see the 3 things in Yi Feng's hand. His expression was stunned. His eyes bulged. His face was filled with a dazed expression, and he was stunned. Did I hear this correctly? Yi Feng asked young Master Han to choose one from these 3. Could it be that he planned to fight young Master Han with this thing? And forget it, now I'm starting to wonder if there's something wrong with my eyes. What did I see? Is that a camera, game console and MP for listening to music? I am not wrong, right? No, you read that right. Those 3 are cameras, game consoles and MP3 players. Maybe we heard it wrong. Well, maybe it's true. Looking at this scene, people couldn't help but wipe their eyes. See if you saw it wrong. I couldn't help but wipe my ears to see if there was anything wrong with my ears. He said with a look of surprise and uncertainty. His expression was very astonished. Although many people think that this may be just their illusion, they have seen and heard wrong. However, the facts tell them that this is not the case. This is real. I saw. It's nothing, just because you are very weak. I want to give you a discount, let you choose one of these 3. Because you are too weak, I can't arouse any interest at all. But for practicing, it's okay. It seemed that Yi Feng didn't hear everyone's words and didn't feel the stunned gazes of everyone. He didn't notice that Han Bing's originally unkind gaze became even more unkind at this time. And it became extremely cold. I saw Yi Feng listening to Han Bing's words and speaking quietly. A serious look on his face. Ice. Crack. Listening to Yi Feng's words, Han Bing's face turned dark. Gloomy as water. Holding it neatly. And after listening to Yi Feng's words, everyone completely believed it. After all, you can hear it wrong once, but you can't hear it wrong twice. What's more, he's not alone. Just hearing what Yifeng said, everyone present looked a little weird. Although normal people will naturally not have a good attitude when they meet someone who has different intentions towards them. But the other party is young Master Han of the Han family in Kyoto. Yifeng's previous behavior had already made everyone admire him. Now that they see this scene, they can evaluate the other party's strength frankly and honestly, which gives everyone a new understanding of Yifeng. A look of wonder. But at the same time, he is not optimistic about the next battle. I'm afraid Yifeng will lose. At this time, Han Bing's 2 guards saw this scene. His eyes were even more filled with anger. Is he kidding their master? Compared to the astonishment of others, it was unbelievable. At this time, Zhao Qing and others looked much calmer. After all, they had seen Yifeng's strange armor summoner. Naturally, it is clearer than others. Especially Mr. Zhang and Zhao Qing, their memories are still fresh. At that time in the World of Warcraft forest, Yifeng relied on that camera to see through Mr. Zhang's disguise. Lu Yi was instantly killed. Invisibility is a joke. But there was still surprise in his eyes. It is just 3. MP3, game console. There are 2 more. If one represents a pair of armor, then Yifeng's implication is that besides the Xingtian armor, there are other armors. He can also transform into other armors and become armors that are not weaker than Xingtian. How can this be? Zhao Qing was seen looking at the 3 things in Yifeng's hand. A thoughtful look on his face. Then he seemed to think of something, and his expression was startled. He said with a look of astonishment. His expression was very shocked. At the end, he looked in disbelief. 1 armor Xingtian is so powerful, 2 more. Does he want to have the strength of an army of superpowers all by himself? How is this possible? How did he do that? This is unlikely. Maybe we are just overthinking. Maybe this is just Yifeng teasing him. At this time, Wang Shui on the side also came to his senses. After listening to Zhao Qing's words, he said with a look of surprise. Subconsciously wiped the sweat on his forehead. After all, with Yifeng's character, maybe he can really do it. He is a man who does whatever he wants. Wherever you think of, there is a place. Wang Shui thinks so. She is obviously still worried about Yifeng scaring her on the plane. After all, what happened at that time is still fresh in her memory even now. Maybe. Zhao Qing sighed softly after hearing this. He murmured softly as he watched this scene. Mr. Zhang on the side looked at Yifeng's game console, MP3 with a thoughtful expression on his face. What no one noticed was that they were not the only ones paying attention to Yifeng. At this time, he was in a high-rise building. A woman with an enchanting figure and a mature aura also looked directly at Yifeng. Looking at the 3 summoners in Yifeng's hand, he looked thoughtful. Is this the armor heir of this generation of Kyushu? At this time, everyone's expressions were different. At this time on the battlefield, Han Bing also slowly came back to his senses. Look at Yifeng in front of you. Breathed softly. Then he didn't say much, but took a deep look at Yifeng. It seems that he wants to remember Yifeng's appearance, but he is afraid that he will not be able to remember it later. Because it looks different. Then he pointed. Just point directly at the camera. Seeing this scene, Yifeng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. I see you are not very lucky. He actually chose the commander's armor with the strongest combat ability and the highest comprehensiveness among the 3 armors. I can only say that God wants me to kill you. Okay, let me show you the real power of Xingtian armor. Xingtian armor fusion. Then he shook his head and spoke slowly. As he spoke, he put away his MP3 players and game consoles. Only the Xingtian armor summoner remained in Yifeng's hands. Then he said with a serious face. At the end of the sentence, he pressed lightly on himself. Identification successful. Then suddenly a mechanical voice suddenly came. Armor fusion. Suddenly, Yifeng instantly transformed into the Xingtian armor and was directly wrapped in the armor. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Xingtian armor. Sure enough, Master Yifeng chose the armor power. Is this the Xingtian armor that penetrates the deep sea and is invincible in the deep sea? Let's not talk about the strength, just the appearance alone is great. Very cool. It is definitely the coolest armor I have ever seen. No other armor can compare with it, not even the Japanese knights. Indeed, I think so too. Although Han Bing is hateful, he is 2 years older than Yi Feng and has peak A-level strength. 2 levels higher than Yi Feng. And he has a lot of combat experience. Although his character is extremely poor, his talent is really good. He inherited Yingzhong's steel armor. And it is a new second-generation armor that has been upgraded. It is a very strong existence at the same level. As for Yi Feng's armor, although it looks cool, its gold content is definitely not as good as Rang Xiao's steel armor. This is the latest crystallization of Eagle Sauce. It symbolizes Blue Star's most advanced weapon. Yi Feng's armor is absolutely incomparable. But why? Now I feel that Yi Feng's armor is more powerful. Quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark quote. Then he slowly came back to his senses. He said with a look of amazement. Unexpectedly, Yi Feng really has armor powers. At the same time, his eyes were full of curiosity. After all, the already famous Xingtian armor seemed to have miraculous things and colors. Warcraft, Deep Sea, Ghost Demon. No war is lost and every battle is invincible. Therefore, when everyone saw Yi Feng transforming into Queen Xingtian, they immediately looked at her with curiosity. At the same time, he silently compared Han Bing's steel armor with the Xingtian armor transformed by Yi Feng. His eyes were full of curiosity. After all, the Xingtian armor can be regarded as a battle armor in a sense. I don't know which of these two armors is more powerful and which one is more powerful. His eyes were full of curiosity and he was talking endlessly. However, with the popularization of science by some insiders, everyone has a new understanding of steel armor. However, after hearing Yi Feng's words, I was dumbfounded. At the same time, my heart was filled with new confusions. Bright world, what is the Ming realm? I just saw. Backquote what? Listening to Yi Feng's words, Han Bing couldn't help but frown. A look of surprise on his face. What he means is that the other two were also armor summoners just now. Can I also transform into armor? The so-called letting him choose means letting him choose an armor to fight with his ice. Does this mean that with every piece of armor, Yi Feng is confident that he can fight with him? Thinking of this, Han Bing couldn't help but be surprised. Regardless of whether he is that strong or not, it is simply unheard of for one person to be able to summon 3 pairs of armors. And not to mention the strength is so strong. This is especially true after hearing Yi Feng's last words. His face turned completely dark. Bluff, he couldn't help but said coldly. Steel armor. Then he waved his hands. Then I saw battle armors flying out from around the ice in an instant and piercing the ice directly. Suddenly, an iron armor that was 89 similar to Iron Man appeared directly in Yi Feng's eyes. Looking at Yi Feng with a proud look on his face. Money, my armor is a armor developed by Yingzhong using the latest technology. Its defense is extremely powerful. It's hard to break if it's not S level. At the same time, it is equipped with various advanced technological weapons. It can launch powerful missiles and other thermal weapons at any time. It can fly freely in the sky and fight on land and sea. A-level invincible. It's the most advanced one in Blue Star. He raised his head slightly and said with a stern expression. Immediately, the surrounding people were amazed. His expression was very proud. Only he, young Master Han, has the resources to get this kind of equipment. It seems to be higher than others. However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Yi Feng's words. His face was blank. I'm sorry, this armor of mine was born on the Flame Star, and was later equipped with the fire sword given by the Ming realm. It has become the highest technological crystallization in the universe. Not only that, you can fly freely in the universe, but the energy. After saying this, Yi Feng paused slightly. Then he patted his breastplate. Energy has long been obsolete. Who still uses energy these days? It's all activated by will. If it's armor energy, then you can call it mind energy. The power of mind is so powerful that it doesn't matter even if the planet explodes. There is no upper limit and no need to update. Then he spoke, a serious look on his face. Although the sound was small, everyone present could hear it. It shocked everyone. The scene instantly became quiet. The silence is endless. Han Bing's originally proud smile suddenly condensed. There was a look of astonishment on his face. And the woman's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled slightly. At this time, Han Bing, who was originally triumphant and proud, was introducing the origin of the steel armor. At this time, listening to Yi Feng's words and Yi Feng's introduction to Xingtian armor, the whole person froze in place, and the proud smile on his face froze. He stood there with a dull look on his face, confused. Mingji, from the universe, the highest technological crystallization in the universe. You said that your steel armor is the most advanced crystallization of Blue Star. Excuse me, my Xingtian armor is the highest technological crystallization in the universe. And I am also in Blue Star now. Guess who has the highest technological achievements now? You said you can fly. Sorry, I can fly to the universe. You said that you have advanced technology, use the latest developed energy, have strong defense, and can be updated in the future and become stronger soon. Sorry, my armor does not require energy, it just relies on will. If so, you can say what you mean. And there is no need to update it. The stronger the intention, the stronger the armor. Unlimited. No need to update. There is no need to continuously improve research and development to increase combat power. What Yi Feng said kept coming back to his mind, making Shui so shocked that he couldn't speak. Dumbfounded. His face keeps changing. The weather was uncertain, so I just stood there stupidly. However, compared to Han Bing, Zhao Qing and others were relatively calm at this time. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. So that's it, this is the origin of Xingtian armor. No wonder Yi Feng is so strong, that's why. This armor itself is not simple. At this time, Zhao Qing said with a sudden look on his face. At the same time, his eyes couldn't help but be filled with new doubts. Mingji, what is Mingji? And what is the relationship between Yi Feng and the Ming realm? If Xingtian armor has something to do with the Ming realm, the armor's superpowers are based on the user's own imagination. Then how did Yi Feng do it? Is it unintentional, or there is another hidden reason? Looking at Yi Feng standing proudly, his beautiful eyebrows were furrowed. Whispered softly, a thoughtful look on his face. Although Wang Shui on the side was surprised, she seemed to have thought of something. Decisively turned on the live broadcast. This is something worth broadcasting live. Fidgeting with his cell phone, Mr. Zhang narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at Yi Feng. I don't know what I'm thinking. Compared to Zhao Qing and others, they were relatively calm. At this time, most of the other people present are basically the same as Han Bing. It can even be said that it is not much better at all. Listening to Yi Feng's narration, everyone present exploded. It was hotly debated, a look of surprise and uncertainty. Did I hear it right? Xingtian armor is the highest technological crystallization in the universe. Can you still fly in the universe? Unlimited potential. Driven by will. Is this true? Is the origin of Xingtian armor so big? Actually, I'm more curious than this about what the Ming realm is and where it comes from. The sword of fire that Yi Feng mentioned should be the sword used in the previous incidents. Does such a powerful sword also come from the bright world? But what is the bright world? Where is it? Could it be that the real name of the fantasy world is the Ming realm? But I finally understand why the Xingtian armor is so strong, and I finally understand why Yi Feng has half a level of combat power as soon as he awakens and summons. The hell, their promotion system is different from ours. Rely on the power of mind to improve. I always feel that this steel armor is completely worthless compared to the Xingtian armor. The disadvantages are too obvious. That's true, but do you think Yi Feng just said it casually? After all, okay. Pretend I didn't say anything. Looking at this scene, he said with a look of surprise. His expression was very startled. A look of disbelief. Every time Yi Feng said his description of Xingtian armor, everyone felt their minds buzzing. Confused. I just feel like my 3 views have been wiped out. At the same time, I am curious about the Ming realm mentioned by Yi Feng. It turns out that any weapon given by the Ming realm can make the Xingtian armor one of the highest technological crystallizations in the universe. So how powerful is the Ming realm? After all, that burning sword is visible to everyone. You know the power of that sword, it is really not simple. At the same time, many people associate it with the fantasy world and wonder whether the so-called fantasy world is the bright world. But more people secretly compared Yingzhang's proud steel armor with Yi Feng's Xingtian armor. It turns out that Xingtian armor seems to be more powerful than steel armor. The two don't seem to be on the same level. He directly crushed the opponent. This immediately shocked everyone. You must know that the steel armor is one of the 4 most powerful abilities of Blue Star, and due to the sustainability of the steel armor, it can be permanently upgraded. It is also known as the most potential superpower. Now it has been surpassed like this. While this made everyone confused, they couldn't help but wonder if Yifeng was exaggerating, or if it was too exaggerated. But the next scene stunned everyone present, and their tone was direct. A look of disbelief. I saw. Call. I can't help you, but I don't believe anything you say. Because, at this time, when everyone had different expressions and talked a lot. At this time Han Bing had come to his senses and breathed out lightly. Then he looked at Yifeng and narrowed his eyes slightly. He spoke slowly, a serious look on his face. But the jealousy and anger in his eyes could not be concealed. Obviously he said he didn't believe it, but Han Bing believed it in his heart. After all, Han Bing didn't think that one person could tell such a detailed situation in such a short time. Unless the other party is prepared. But is it possible? Han Bing didn't think Yifeng could see his inner thoughts clearly. So 80% of it is true. So Han Bing looked at the summoner on Yifeng's waist, his eyes full of greed. He seems to have transformed through this. If you kill Yifeng accidentally, and then take it away accidentally. Is it possible that if you are careless, it will become your own? At that time, whether you use it for eagle sauce research or use it for yourself, it is a harmless thing. Han Bing believes that those in Yingjiang will definitely like it. So when the time comes and it really doesn't work, Imperial College will hold him accountable. At worst, I can just move to Yingjiang's place when the time comes. He is cold and fearless. Thinking of this, Han Bing looked at Yifeng with eyes full of greed and murderous intent. Before he finished speaking, he rushed towards Yifeng. Clench your fists and throw the hammer away. Good. This man named Yifeng is dead. Young Master's punch is enough to break a huge boulder. He looks like plastic. What? Fly, fly. I know Yifeng was beaten away, right? Why should I be so surprised about this? No, it was the young master who flew out. Quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. At this time, not far away, the 2 guards of Han Bing saw this scene. He couldn't help but sneer. He said coldly. His eyes were full of confidence. One of the guards turned his back and said coldly. Prepare to think about how to welcome the young master's return and prevent Zhao Qing and others from counter-attacking. After all, they know Han Bing very well and know what Han Bing wants to do now. However, his companion's words immediately brought him back to his senses. A look of shock on his face. At the same time, he slapped his ears, wondering if he heard wrongly. I couldn't help but subconsciously turned my head and looked over. And this sight made him stunned, and it was also this scene that directly shut up everyone who was originally talking about it. I saw. Pong. Han Bing's punch hit Yifeng's breastplate hard. There was a soft sound. Looking at this scene, Han Bing couldn't help but grin. Can't help but smile. However, what happened next caused the smile on Han Bing's face to freeze. The pupils shrank sharply. I saw Yifeng standing motionless, without any injuries. It didn't fly out directly as he imagined. And looked at himself coldly. Even through the armor, Han Bing could feel the coldness. I couldn't help but shudder subconsciously. I feel a strong greed and great malice from you. I originally thought that I would only feel it on nether demons in this world, but I didn't expect that I would feel it on humans too. It seems that sometimes it's not the enemy that's scary, but people like you, who are even more sinister than Netherworld. Forget it, I am now a member of the Xingtian Armor Law Enforcement Team, and I will judge you for this world today. Yifeng looked at Han Bing and said coldly. A look of coldness on his face. When facing the nether demon before, Yifeng didn't even bother to judge, and used that move just for a quick victory. But for this kind of people, I'm sorry, Yifeng means that I feel very unhappy with you. So I can only judge you. Anyway, Xingja itself has the function of judging. Originally I just planned to teach you a lesson, but now it seems I have no choice but to judge you. Thinking of this, Yifeng stretched out his right hand and directly grabbed Han Bing's right hand. Ruthless. Wah, what? Listening to Yifeng's words, feeling Yifeng's sight, Han Bing said subconsciously. His body couldn't help but tremble. Trembling. He didn't know why, even though he was separated by armor, he still seemed to be able to feel the gaze from Yifeng. Straight into his soul. It seems like I can see through his soul. This frightened Han Bing. Even if he faced those judges, he would not do this. I always feel that Yifeng at this time is not like a person with superpowers but more like a ruthless law enforcer. However, Yifeng did not answer him. The only answer was Yifeng's power. I saw Yifeng twisting slightly, and suddenly there was a clicking sound. Han Bing's right fist twisted directly, causing Han Bing to scream subconsciously. Boom. Yifeng didn't stop there and punched Han Bing directly. Then under the horrified gazes of everyone, Han Bing was directly knocked away. Flying away, falling heavily to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. I read that right. Master Han was beaten away. Young Master Han, who is so powerful and at the peak of A level, flew out. It's okay, I was careless at first, it's normal, but it won't be so later. No, look what that is. Yifeng, what is he trying to do? It's so strong and hot, I seem to feel a wave of heat. **, he said with a look of horror. Astonished. Unexpectedly, Han Bing fell into a disadvantage so quickly, but even so, someone still spoke for Han Bing. Justifying. However, before he finished speaking, he was shocked by the next scene. Shocked. That's the move. At this time, Zhao Qing saw this scene. His expression could not help but condense slightly, and he slowly spoke. Seeing this, Mr. Zhang subconsciously cheered up. He took a step forward and looked at this scene seriously. At this time, the woman in JLo looked calm from beginning to end. She was only a little moved when she heard the word Mingji. When I saw this scene, I subconsciously lowered my arms. He said with a surprised look on his face. I just saw. When the ice flew across the ground, Yifeng was not idle at this time. Wei Wei took a step forward. Heaven and Earth's ultimate punishment and heavenly killing technique. He spoke slowly, and as he said these words, everyone looked at him in shock. An interface burning with blazing flames appeared directly in everyone's eyes. When Han Bing came back to his senses, he had arrived in a space he had never seen before. This frightened Han Bing, especially when Yifeng's voice sounded, it sent chills all over my body. This is a sure kill technique designated by the court of the Ming realm, specifically designed to kill the most sinful people. And you have already violated the unforgivable crime of greed in the galactic justice law. The greedy heart has been deeply ingrained in you, and keeping you here will be a scourge to this world. Today, I, Xingtian Armor, declare to deprive you of all rights. And decided to seal and kill you. Let's capture you without any help. Listening to Yifeng's words, he was a bit of a middle class but full of majesty. Everyone was shocked. The court of the Ming realm. Galactic justice. Law enforcer Xingtian. There was a look of surprise and uncertainty on his face. At this time, the woman in the tall building couldn't help but frown when she saw this scene. A look of surprise. This is the infinity of heaven and earth. The power of heaven and earth. Accepted by heaven and earth. At this time, in the tall building, a voluptuous and beautiful woman looked at this scene. Feeling the breath of Yifeng, her beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but wrinkle slightly. A look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Whispered softly. At the end of the sentence, he slightly raised his head and looked towards the sky. Thinking secretly. And just when this woman was thoughtful and thinking secretly. At this time, the reaction of everyone present was much more intense. His mouth opened subconsciously, and his pupils shrank sharply. A look of shock on his face. The expression is very shocking. It was hotly debated. And this flame, this burning plane. The ultimate punishment and killing technique of heaven and earth. This is the move Yifeng used when Tianai fought with the Nether Demon. It's really powerful. I never thought I could see it again. Even after seeing it once, it's still shocking. Yes, but is this the point? Isn't the point that Yifeng's killing technique is very simple? Law enforcement, trial, galaxy justice law, law enforcer Xingtian. No wonder I had a burning sensation that burned my soul and a coldness that pierced my soul. It turned out to be like this. This is the majesty from the judgment heaven. The pressure of judgment. No, I don't seem to have this feeling. Do you think this is the case for people with evil intentions, such as you? Yes, I don't seem to have this feeling. I just feel that the light is so bright and has an inexplicable majesty. Same, especially Yi Feng's sentence. Although it sounds a bit mediocre, it is really majestic. I have decided that I will also say this when I act chivalrously in the future. It must be very cool. I declare the deprivation in the name of Xingtian armor. So, brother, something happened to you. No way, I don't want to be judged by Mr. Yi. Woo-woo, I will never steal or rob again in the future, I will surrender. It's really like this. What a powerful move. Is this the so-called judgment skill? But compared to this, I am more curious about the so-called galaxy justice law. Our blue star is a member of the Milky Way. Does Yi Feng mean that the Xingtian armor can enforce the law on blue star? Is this considered one of his law enforcement places? But compared to this, I'm actually more curious. Yi Feng used this trick in those few words that almost sentenced Han Bing to death. Is he going to kill Han Bing? You are so fair and above board, why do you say it outright? I guess this so-called seal may be to cripple Han Bing. Even if Han Bing's family is crippled, it will be fine. After all, his 2 guards have already left when they saw this scene, and they are probably going to bring in reinforcements. So it's probably impossible. Seriously, pretend I didn't say that. Can we only say that this is a law enforcer? He is selfless and selfless. This is very young Master Yi. Looking at this scene, everyone was talking endlessly. They all spoke. The eyes were filled with wonder, especially those who had previously known about Deep Sea City. Looking at this scene, I was amazed. At the same time, a look of surprise flashed in the eyes of many people, and they had a clear understanding of their previous inexplicable feelings. So this is awe. No wonder it feels like this. Who can withstand the pressure from the law enforcer's trial? However, with the discussion, more and more people seemed to not have the feeling these people said. Suddenly those people's faces instantly turned pale and they were trembling. They subconsciously took a few steps back, fearing that Yi Feng would give them a trial and sentence them directly. When everyone saw this, they were even more surprised. I have a new understanding of this so-called sure kill technique. At the same time, they were curious about the galaxy law of justice mentioned by Yi Feng, and started to speculate one after another. He became more and more curious about the range of functions that Xingtian armor could carry out. But what everyone is more curious about is what Yi Feng did. Yi Feng used this trick on Han Bing, and those words can be translated into 2 words. Death penalty. I sentence you to death. This surprised everyone. Even if others wanted to deal with each other, they had to do it secretly. Someone like Yi Feng is upright and straightforward in pronouncing judgments with the attitude of a high-ranking person. This is the first time I've seen it. This surprised everyone, wondering if Yi Feng would do this. Especially after seeing the actions of Han Bing's 2 guards. I saw. The court of the clear world. Even the so-called Ming realm is not qualified to judge my young master. Does he want to sentence my young master to death? At this time, the tall guard looked at this scene and couldn't help but darken his face. Listen to Yi Feng's words. He spoke slowly. A gloomy look. Especially at the end, even more so. If Yi Feng can really defeat the young master, then he can also defeat us. Go and notify the head of the family quickly. At this time, the short man on the side saw this scene. His brows were furrowed tightly. He spoke slowly. A serious look on his face. His fists were clenched tightly. Although they are bodyguards, their strength is only mid-level a level. Following Han Bing is just to handle some trivial matters for Huang Shui. After all, with Han Bing's peak A-level strength, no one other than S-level could win. Naturally, S-level beings would not dare to offend Han Bing. After all, Han Bing was not only the 10th ranked being in the Kyushu Genius rankings. And this is the imperial capital. Of course it's even more impossible. But I didn't expect. Thinking of this, the short guard's face became more and more gloomy. Good. The tall guard heard this and knew the urgency of the matter. He nodded and spoke. Then he turned around and left. When everyone saw this scene, they saw Han Bing's guards leaving. Everyone does not believe that Yi Feng will really block Han Bing. At most, he will be disabled. However, before they could finish speaking, the next scene shocked everyone. His mouth opened subconsciously and he was stunned. The expression was very shocked and unbelievable. That guy. At this time, Zhao Qing saw this scene and naturally wanted to stop the tall guard. But he was stopped by Mr. Zhang, who came to Zhao Qing and blocked Zhao Qing's way. Shaked his head. Zhao Qing couldn't help but be stunned. However, before Zhao Qing could recover, a voice suddenly came. It directly attracted Zhao Qing's attention, and he subconsciously turned his head and looked over. This sight made Zhao Qing's pupils shrink sharply. A look of horror on his face. This is. I saw. Just when everyone had different expressions. At this time on the battlefield, Han Bing looked at the surrounding environment, which was completely different from before. And feel the atmosphere of this environment, even wearing steel armor. You can feel the biting cold even in the ice. Especially when he heard Yi Feng's voice, Han Bing was shocked. My head feels a little dizzy. It was as if Yi Feng's voice resounded directly in his Bing Bing mind. At this time, he had slowly come back to his senses. But his face was still a little pale. You judge me. I am the young master of the Han family, what you are doing is. Looking at Yi Feng, he jumped away and said, breaking into a cold sweat. At the same time, his eyes were wandering and he kept looking around. Want to get out of here. Too. Although you are a human, you are almost like a demon. If I weren't just Xingtian armor at this time, and I wasn't a member of the Mingji court, I wouldn't be able to perform the functions of the court. Otherwise, you will be thrown into the realm of greed, and you will be shown to others in the form of a demon, like a ghost demon, and you will be cursed for life. You just sealed the kill, thank you for your luck. Fire palm. Yi Feng heard this and sneered. He said with a look of disdain. The tone was full of regret. It is estimated that the only person who can use this move is the Emperor of Heaven. But it doesn't matter, sooner or later the law of heaven will be summoned, and then there will be a world judgment directly in this world. In one breath, those sinful people will be driven into the beast realm. Just like Lufa and the others, they became inhuman and ghosts. And the effect will definitely be stronger. But it's still too far to think about these things now, and we'd better solve this matter now. And to deal with this guy, Xingtian armor is enough. By the way, let everyone see the true power of Xingtian armor. Thinking of this, Yi Feng snorted coldly. Finally, take a card directly from the card box and put it into the card slot. He shouted softly. Suddenly, both hands were directly covered by gauntlet-type weapons. RR, you forced me to do this. At this time, listening to Yi Feng's words and feeling Yi Feng's biting coldness, Han Bing was already going crazy at this time and couldn't hear what Yi Feng was saying at all. He feels very uncomfortable here. Now seeing Yi Feng not wanting to let him go, he even took out his weapon. Feel the powerful breath of Yi Feng. Han Bing couldn't help but said crazily. He fired missiles one after another directly towards Yi Feng and blasted them towards Yi Feng. At the same time, he backed away like crazy. Snort. Magnetic field of heaven, earth and man. Seeing this, Yi Feng snorted coldly. He shouted softly. The magnetic field of heaven, earth and man combines the armor's own powerful energy with the northern and southern magnetic fields of the planet. Forms a powerful solid magnetic wall around the target. And then trap the opponent, the target's action. Therefore, under this move, Han Bing instantly felt that he could not move and stopped directly. Those missiles also fell directly into the ground under the astonished eyes of everyone. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. As the magnetic field of heaven, earth and man really the power of heaven and earth. At this time, when the woman saw this, her eyes narrowed slightly. He stretched out his hand slightly and felt the changes in the magnetic field of the blue star. Whispered softly. At the same time, he looked at Yi Feng's movements and was about to stretch out his right hand. But then he seemed to think of something and accepted it again. Return. Watching quietly. Snort. At this time, Yi Feng has finished this. He snorted coldly and rushed towards Han Bing. Seeing this, Han Bing's face became paler. You asked for this. Then he gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. Then under the astonished eyes of everyone, he directly took out a token and crushed it into pieces. Then under everyone's astonished gaze, a new type of steel armor appeared directly in front of everyone's eyes. Half-step S level. This is a life-saving thing given to Han Bing by the Han family. It's just that Han Bing has always been arrogant and has never bothered to use this thing. It seems that this time he is really in a hurry. But like this, Yifeng and Han Bing's relationship is completely sealed. Even if it wasn't like this, it would still be a fight to the death. But I'm afraid Yifeng is really in danger. After all, although this is a phantom, it still has half an S-level strength. I guess Mr. Yifeng is hanging this time. I'm going. How is this possible? Asterisk asterisk. At this time, everyone saw this scene and slowly spoke. There was a look of surprise and uncertainty on his face. It is similar to the magic weapon of those family members in the fantasy world who call their relatives. The kind that has more or less strength. And this one is obviously similar. When everyone saw this moment, they marveled at Yifeng's strength, being able to push Han Bing to this point. He is also not very optimistic about Yifeng's situation at this time. You know, this is half a step to S level. He can be regarded as a strong man in Kyushu. They don't think Yifeng can win. Yifeng. It was not just them at this time. Zhao Qing and others saw this scene. He couldn't help but speak slowly, a look of worry on his face. However, before he could finish speaking, before Zhao Qing and others could say something, the next scene immediately shocked everyone. A look of shock on his face. I just saw. You are dead. This is my Han family. Ah. Just when everyone had different expressions, Han Bing looked at the steel battle standing in front of him. With his mind a little more stable, he looked at Yifeng and said coldly. His face was filled with resentment. It was him who made him lose all face. It is impossible not to avenge this. Be sure to let him, later. However, before he could finish speaking, the scene that happened next made Han Bing startled and shocked. His face was full of astonishment and he was so shocked. This is impossible. Just when everyone had different expressions, the steel armor looked at Yifeng. He rushed over directly. Seeing this, Yifeng sneered. Then a powerful aura instantly emitted from Yifeng, and the armor spirit was completely displayed in front of everyone. Then he clapped his palm and struck a blow against the steel armor. Then under the horrified eyes of everyone, the steel armor flew backwards. Let me show you what armor is in the full power of the primary form of Xingtian armor. By the way, I've banned you all too. Clam. Chenkin takes possession of the devil. Yifeng said coldly, saying the last thing. Drink lightly. Suddenly, a tyrannical aura swept across the entire venue, shocking everyone. The armor fit is 90%. It's enough to unleash the true power of the form armor's initial form. Half step to S level. Watching this scene, watching Yi fight with his steel armor. Everyone was shocked. Extremely shocked. Magnetic field of heaven, earth and man. Xingtian's ultimate killing technique. Chenkin's magic palm, fire sword technique, and Xingtian light explosion bomb. Is this the true power of Xingtian armor? Is this still the armor they know? Or, this is armor? Thinking of this, everyone was shocked and couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. Chapter 71. I saw it right. Is that the steel armor that flew backwards? Half-step S-level steel armor. Fight with Yifeng, and then get knocked back. This is the one that flew upside down. No way. Did I read it correctly? I'm afraid I'm not dazzled. No, you are not dazzled, this is the fact. You read that right. Yes, it can only be said that we still underestimated the Xingtian armor. We underestimated the power of the armor. According to Yifeng, this is the full power of the primary form of Xingtian armor. Primary. What is elementary? It means that Xingtian armor has a new form. Can it be upgraded? How is this possible? Probably not, it's just that we are overthinking it. Without technological improvement, how can there be armor that can automatically upgrade, even if the opponent relies on will and will to activate it? It's impossible. At this time, everyone present looked at Wen Yi. He slowly came back to his senses. Wiped the sweat on his forehead. He said with a horrified look on his face. I couldn't help but wipe my eyes subconsciously, trying to make sure I had seen it wrong. However, no matter how many people rub their eyes and no matter how reluctant they are to believe it, this is the truth. Flying upside down is indeed Han Bing's last hope, the last trump card, a steel armor with half-step S-level strength. Seeing this scene, everyone looked very shocked. So horrified. Previously, they thought they were afraid that Yifeng would be in danger, but they didn't expect that he would be knocked away by the steel armor the next second. It really shocked everyone's attention. Unbelievable. Somewhat sad. At the same time, everyone came back to their senses after listening to Yifeng's domineering words. Except this fact, I have a new understanding of the power of Xingtian armor and the armor. Is this the true power of Xingtian armor? Half step to S level. At the same time, new confusion arose in my heart. Primary form. Everyone caught these 4 words keenly, with expressions of surprise and uncertainty on their faces. Doesn't this mean that Xingtian armor has a new form? An armor that can be upgraded automatically without any research and development. Just rely on willpower. Thinking of this, everyone was shocked and confused. This is absolutely impossible and unbelievable in their perception and in everyone's impression. After all, even the most advanced technological steel armor that symbolizes Blue Star cannot do this. Anyway, it is difficult for everyone to believe this. Probably not. And just when everyone was talking incessantly and looking horrified. At this time, Zhao Qing and others slowly came to their senses. Looking at this scene, he breathed a sigh of relief. They were also worried about Yifeng before, thinking that Yifeng's situation would be very unpleasant. But now it seems that they are overthinking. It really makes people worry so much. If you have this power, just use it. At this time, Wang Shui saw this scene. He patted his chest and spoke slowly. The tone seemed a bit complaining. However, before I finished speaking, I saw. You can't say that. After all, Mr. Yi didn't show any panic from the beginning to the end, which shows that he didn't panic at all and was confident. Sister Wang, you are just worried about yourself. You are worried blindly. Yes, you are too timid, Anchor. Why don't we change people? I think it's better to let me do the live broadcast. I also want to see Mr. Yi up close. At this time, go directly to Kingdom Duo's live broadcast. Similar barrages are everywhere. Wang Shui couldn't help but darken her face, especially when she saw the last sentence. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch, and his eyebrows jumped. Are these guys fans of Yifeng, or fans of me, Wang Shui? Everyone has rebelled, right? When you open your mouth or shut up, it's all Yifeng. And what makes Wang Shui most sad and angry is that the new people who are popular and following her seem to be coming for Yifeng. Because they know that she is with Yifeng now. The previous news that Yifeng went to Imperial College, and now the scene of Yifeng and Han Bing fighting, all emanated from Wang Shui. When neither Yifeng nor Zhao Qing played live broadcast, everyone naturally chose Wang Shui. Thinking of this, Wang Shui couldn't help but sigh heavily. But looking at these barrages, I still couldn't help but speak. So, this is still my fault. I think too much. A serious look on his face. Chu Chu was pitiful. His eyes were full of anticipation. Yes, there is no need to say that. Wang Shui, my heart is broken. It's over. No more love. Seeing this scene, Wang Shui looked crazy. I want to cry but have no tears. At this time, Zhao Qing looked at Wang Shui's appearance and couldn't help but shook his head. Too lazy to deal with this nervous guy. Instead, he looked straight towards Yifeng. A serious look on his face. Half-step S level. It's true that he was able to advance from half-step B level to half-step S level in such a short period of time, especially when Yifeng was still in the early stages of a level. Even more so, I'm afraid this is already the fastest improvement rate in the world. It's enough to go down in history. Feeling the momentum exuded by Yifeng, and watching the battle between Yifeng and the steel armor. Even from a distance, there was a stinging tearing feeling on his face. He couldn't help but sigh, and his expression condensed slightly. He spoke slowly, a serious look on his face. Yes, I can only say that your understanding of armor is still too little. Maybe this is the power of armor. At this time, Mr. Zhang, who was blocking Zhao Qing, slowly came to his senses. Looking at this scene, he slowly spoke. A look of emotion on his face. Zhao Qing heard this and nodded subconsciously. Didn't notice anything strange. But a look of approval on his face. At the same time, he seemed to notice something and sighed softly. The gap between us and Yifeng is really getting farther and farther. And just when everyone had different expressions. At this time, Yifeng directly slapped the steel armor with his palm, and then the steel armor flew out again. This time it was almost scrapped. Fell directly next to the ice. There is also a sizzling sound of electricity coming from the body. At this time, Han Bing was also protected by the steel armor and his own armor when Yi Feng used Chenkin to collect the devil's palm. But he still recovered from his injuries, and now he was half kneeling on the ground. Blood was flowing out and his face was pale. But now looking at this scene, Han Bing subconsciously gritted his teeth and stood up. Want to step back, but Yi Feng did not take back the skill of heaven, earth and human magnetic field. Still unable to move, trapped in this space, he couldn't help but kneel on the ground again, looking at Yi Feng, who fell on the ground and looked towards him. His body was trembling, and his face looked frightened. He really didn't expect Yi Feng to be so powerful. Defeat the steel armor that he thought was a sure win. It also has half a step of S-level power. And it's even more powerful than steel armor. This directly frightened Han Bing, especially thinking of what Yi Feng said before. I will block you in this steel armor directly. She is determined to block him. In other words, when Yi Feng used the killing technique, things were already doomed. This made Han Bing even more frightened. You, how can you be so powerful? No, that's not right. You, wait. Seeing Yi Feng's eyes turning to him, he couldn't help but said with a look of horror. Ah, Sword of Fire, second style 2, fire sword technique. However, the only answer he received was Yi Feng's sneer. Then Yi Feng directly summoned the fire sword and said with a cold face. He rushed directly towards the ice. Suddenly a scream came out, and the sky was filled with sword light. When the sword light dissipated, only the steel armor that had turned into scrap metal was left. And the ice that is scarred, pale, and the skin seems to be cracking. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. Especially when I saw that the half-step S-level steel armor had turned into scrap metal, as if it was itself scrap metal. Even more so, things are coming to an end. Is that the burning sword given by the Ming Realm Court? It's really powerful. But what do you think Yi Feng means by sealing and killing him? Is it to seal him? I don't think it's possible to say that it's just a kill. The worst thing is that there are no bones left. What else can there be? No, I think it might not be that simple. Look, what is that? At this time, everyone saw this scene. He couldn't help but slowly come back to his senses. Sighed softly, he spoke slowly, without any surprise at the situation in front of him. When Yi Feng summons the killing technique, when Yi Feng can fight with the steel armor, everyone seems to already know the outcome. But then everyone became curious about the ban mentioned by Yi Feng. If it's just a simple beheading, then why the hell do we need to make it formal? This made everyone surprised and confused. And coincidentally, many people think it should be a simple beheading. This trick may be just to prevent Han Bing from escaping. Otherwise, they really can't think of anything else, and it will be considered a ban. However, the next scene directly shocked everyone. Subconsciously he looked towards Yi Feng, dumbfounded. His expression was very astonished. At the same time, several question marks instantly appeared in my mind. What is that? Not only everyone present, but also Zhao Qing and others who were familiar with Yi Feng, as well as the well-informed woman saw this scene. He couldn't help but feel a little moved, with a look of astonishment on his face. I saw. It's time to end. Fire gun. 3 blocking methods. Xingtian light explosive bomb. Looking at the dying ice, Yi Feng jumped slightly. Standing high in the sky, directly summoned the fire and electric gun and pointed at the ice. As Yi Feng said these words, he pressed lightly. Suddenly a huge fireball appeared instantly and flew towards Hanbing and the steel armor next to Hanbing. Master. At this time, the remaining short guards saw this scene. I couldn't help but scream subconsciously. Then I wanted to rush over directly. However, what happened next made the short man dumbfounded. A look of astonishment on his face. Looking at the situation in front of me, I was a little confused. I saw. Boom. The light bullet hit the ice directly and made an explosion. As a result, Yi Feng landed lightly on the ground and played a trick. Then he put it away directly. The Nirvana was also put away directly. The scene has returned to a duel arena again. And as the smoke dissipated, the scene inside was directly revealed. I saw a somewhat square and wide thing appearing in front of everyone. Seeing this scene, people can't help but be stunned. The short man couldn't help but be stunned, looking at the scene in front of him. The movements are also straightforward. There was a look of surprise and uncertainty on his face. What is this? Genetic code. And while everyone was stunned, a voice suddenly came. It directly attracted the attention of everyone present. Yi Feng looked at this thing and said slowly. A look of indifference. Sure enough, this man is almost the same as the Nether Demon, the same thing. No, the Nether Demon is also a person with great ambitions. Probably worse than even the Nether Demon. It's just because Blue Star was born and raised, so it exists in the form of genetic code. And listening to Yi Feng's words, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. He looked stunned, a look of astonishment on his face. Genetic code. What it is. Genetic code. At this time, Mr. Zhang saw this scene. He narrowed his eyes slightly and spoke slowly. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but be shocked. Genetic code. The co-author is Yi Feng, who made people exist in genetic form. Only a bunch of genes are left. Has the steel armor been integrated into it? Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but shudder inexplicably. Looking at Yi Feng, his eyes couldn't help but be filled with awe. It's better to kill them. Snort. Yi Feng didn't care what these people were thinking at this time. After figuring out the key, he snorted coldly. Then he opened his right hand slightly, and the genetic codes were immediately put into Yi Feng's summoner. Seeing this scene, everyone became more and more frightened. Doesn't this mean that we will never be able to be reincarnated for eternity? Thinking of this, everyone became more and more frightened. Sure enough, it would be better to die. Is this a seal kill? It's really fierce. It's a truly unique sealing process. At this time, when the woman saw this scene, she couldn't help being slightly shocked. Then he smiled slightly and spoke slowly. Or is this a sealing process unique to the Ming Realm law enforcement armor? Then he seemed to think of something and narrowed his eyes slightly. Look into the distance. At this time, Yi Feng seemed to notice something and turned his head. He looked into the distance. At the same time, he subconsciously touched the summoner. It seems that the time has come for Fang and King Kong to appear. Are those people coming after all? But it's a pity that it was a step too late after all. I'm afraid even they didn't expect that their young master wouldn't be able to last a minute in Yi Feng's hands. Not only was he killed instantly, he was also directly sealed. At this time, the woman seemed to notice something. Looking into the distance, he smiled softly. He spoke slowly, with a smile on his face. It seems that he saw the other party's wonderful expression. But this is her territory, and it is within her territory. We can't let these people mess around. Thinking of this, the woman slowly stretched out her right hand. At the same time, he said the last thing and subconsciously looked at the armor summoner on Yi Feng's waist. He was taken in there by Yi Feng. It was directly typed into the genetic code by Yi Feng and then taken in directly. However, at this moment, the woman seemed to have discovered something, and she looked at Yi Feng and looked in that direction. Did he also notice it? Feel the calm aura on Yi Feng's face. He couldn't help but subconsciously retracted his right hand. Look again. Besides, if the other party has the ability to solve this matter, she doesn't need to take action. After all, she is still looking forward to Yi Feng's performance. It is impossible to say that one can know what the clear world is. After all, at this time, she was very interested in the Ming realm mentioned by Yi Feng. She had a feeling that maybe there was a certain connection between Mingji and Kyushu. Thinking of this, the woman looked thoughtful. At the same time, his eyes were filled with some expectations. At this time, compared to the woman's indifferent expression, the people present were much different. Obviously there is a big difference between this woman and these people, at least in terms of outlook and temperament. I saw, quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. So strong. Chenkin's demon palm, fire sword technique, Xingtian light explosion bomb. Is this the sealing process of Xingtian armor? I heard about this in Tianai, but I didn't expect to see it with my own eyes. It is said that Master Yi Feng used this move to kill the powerful Nether Demon instantly. Now, I have surpassed the peak A-level Master Han and the half-step S-level steel armor in seconds. It was directly beaten into genetic code, and the steel armor was sealed inside. It's strong. It's really strong. The first time I saw someone blocking someone was these three kinds of blocking. Other seals just lock them in and they can never come out. And Yi Feng's co-author is to beat people into a ball of genetic code, and then directly imprison them in the armor summoner. They really can't die, can't live, and can't be reincarnated forever. It's so cruel. No wonder it's called a seal. Who can withstand the seal and kill? I doubt Han Bing was already dead when he was beaten into genetic code. The so-called genetic code is locked in the summoner, which only means that the opponent has no chance of resurrection, making it a real ban. Indeed, but more than this, I'm more curious about how Yi Feng's summoner is made. Not only can it collect magic crystals, but it can also seal it. Isn't this a magical weapon? Could it be that there is an independent space of its own inside? Do you know it now? It is also known that Yi Feng's summoner is an artifact. Don't ask, search online for yourself. Don't always indulge in training and study, and occasionally play with your mobile phone. No, there's something wrong. Have you felt some powerful aura? Could it be that people from the Han family are here? No way. I saw everyone present watching this scene. He slowly came back to his senses and took a sharp breath of air. He said with a look of surprise and uncertainty. The expression is very shocking. This is especially true for those who have paid attention to Tianai. So amazed. I have a new understanding of Yi Feng and Xingtian armor. At the same time, I have a new understanding of the so-called seal kill in Yi Feng's mouth. This also makes people with evil intentions break out in cold sweat and dare not say a word. Instead, he lowered his head silently and hid among the crowd, not daring to get up and slip away. For fear of being seen by Yi Feng, he directly beat him into genetic code and then locked him in the cage. Even if Yi Feng is not so free, he has no interest in doing this. But many people still feel this way and are very frightened inside. And just when everyone had different expressions, they were surprised at Yi Feng, the Book of Death, and even Yi Feng's summoner. At this time, several powerful and biting breaths suddenly came, which directly attracted the attention of everyone present. Everyone present could not help but come back to their senses instantly, and their tone was direct. He said with a look of surprise and uncertainty. Subconsciously, he looked far behind him. At the same time, the scene instantly became quiet, and I didn't even dare to take a breath. At this time, not only these people felt it, but Zhao Qing and others also felt this scene. He came back to his senses instantly. Subconsciously turned his head to look. Feel this powerful breath. He couldn't help but frown. If you can't beat me, why don't you call your relatives? You beat the young ones and then the old ones, they are really good. I saw Zhao Qing slowly coming back to his senses and feeling the breath. He spoke slowly. The tone was full of contempt. Cough, cough, cough. Listening to Zhao Qing's words, Wang Shui, who was also waiting at the side, coughed a few times subconsciously. His face was a little red. Because in a sense, she is also the type of person Zhao Qing mentioned. After all, her father is the mayor. If anyone messes with her, he will be immediately shut down and let go. At this time, after listening to Zhao Qing's somewhat contemptuous words, Wang Shui couldn't help but blush slightly. But he still looked serious. Yes, that's right. These people are indeed hateful. You must know that this battle was initiated by that Bing, and don't think we don't know that when he attacked Yi Feng, he was already thinking of killing. These people are simply shameless and shameless. I saw Wang Shui speaking righteously. A serious look on his face. Zhang Lao, who was watching on the side, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Looking at Wang Shui with a serious face, Mr. Zhang fell into deep thought. Should I tell Wang Shui her father these shameless words when she turns around? And listening to Wang Shui's words, Zhao Qing couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at Wang Shui with a strange look on his face. I'll tell my uncle when I get back. Then he said bluntly. After saying that, he ignored her. He immediately withdrew his gaze and looked into the distance. Wang Shui, what you just said was not unintentional, you really didn't intend to avoid me. You were really my best friend. And just when everyone had different expressions. At this time, the short guard looked at a loss as he watched Han Bing being blocked. Feeling this breath at this time, the short guard slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Yi Feng with a cold expression. Quote. Ah, boom, just wanted to say something. However, before he could finish speaking, he let out a scream. A missile appeared directly and landed in front of him. A direct hit and then blown to pieces. I can't die anymore. At the same time, a cold voice came. Ah, a useless person is still a piece of garbage while alive. What's more, Xiao Han is dead, so your life is even less valuable. Listening to this voice full of coldness and anger, and watching this scene, I couldn't help but swallowed subconsciously. He subconsciously took a few steps back and looked at the person coming, with a look of horror on his face. Hanshui, Hanye, Hanho. The three elders of the Han family. I never thought it would be them. They are notoriously cruel and ruthless, and no one who offends them or is displeased by them has an easy time. And it's very powerful, with half-step S-level strength. Unlike Han Bing's empty steel armor, this is a real half-step S-level. The strength is even more powerful, and together with the three of them, they can even fight or even behead even the early S-class. The status in the Han family is not low. I didn't expect it to be them. It's dangerous now. I'm afraid it will be difficult for Yifeng, even if he is a student of Imperial College, not to mention he hasn't reported it yet. So, holy shit, what did I see? Yifeng him. How can this be? At this time, everyone present looked at the person coming. The tall guard from before was leading the way with a respectful face, and behind him were three middle-aged men. A cold look on his face. It gives people a very uncomfortable feeling. Seeing this scene, everyone present could not help but be shocked. He spoke subconsciously. His tone couldn't help but be full of awe, and at the same time he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Obviously he knows these three people, and he still has lingering fears. And listening to the words of the people around them, Zhao Qing and others couldn't help but look a little worried. Looking at Yifeng, his eyes were full of worry. At the same time, he clenched his fists tightly, ready to fight when the time comes. Let's see if we can buy Yifeng some time. However, the next scene made the two of them's eyes bulge. It almost bulged out, with a look of horror on his face. So shocked. I saw. Ah, Yifeng. At this time, the three people listened to the comments of the people around them. Not only did they not feel unhappy. On the contrary, their expressions became more and more arrogant. After all, they really like the feeling of others being afraid of them. But this was before, and they are not in the mood now. At this time, they were already filled with anger. Just now, when Yifeng fired Xingtian light blast bombs at Han Bing, beating Han Bing into genetic code. They are not far from here. Of course I also saw that scene. I was about to take action to stop it, but unexpectedly, it was still a step too late. By the time they arrived, Yifeng had already ended the battle, and their master Han had also turned into genetic code and put it into the armor summoner. Seeing Yifeng resolve the battle in less than a minute, his eyes couldn't help but be filled with surprise and disbelief. I can't believe that the number one genius of their Han family, the most favored son of heaven, was killed by Yifeng like this. But then I was surrounded by anger, until now. Already filled with anger, he didn't even say a word to the other side. He was secretly glad that he left and that Gao was not present. The guard was blown to pieces. When he was about to die, the tall guards looked confused and confused. I died like this. Did he do something? After doing this, Han Yi stood in the middle and looked at Yifeng. He said coldly. The two people on the side also glared at Yifeng. However, what surprised them was, "Oh, I'm here, what do you want from me?" When Yifeng heard this, he didn't seem to notice the other party's intention. He nodded directly and said, it seemed like they were having a homely conversation, like an ordinary conversation. Han Yi and the others couldn't help but look stunned. Just stay in place. Well, it's nothing. I just want you to give my young master a quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark quote. He spoke subconsciously. Then he seemed to think of something and reacted instantly. Staring at Yifeng. Seeing this scene, the woman in the tall building couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Didn't you expect that the elders of the Han family also have such a funny side? Or is this considered Yifeng's unique personality ability? It's easy to make other people smart. But even he, facing these three people, must. Shaking her head, the woman slowly came back to her senses. Then he seemed to think of something, recalling Yifeng's strength in the battle with Han Bing. Whispered softly, Yifeng can still win one-on-one, but it may not be that easy to fight three. Unless Yi Feng can have similar armor again, but how is that possible? Thinking of this, the woman shook her head and smiled. At the same time, he slowly extended his right hand, ready to help. However, at this moment, the next scene immediately stunned the woman. The outstretched right hand hung directly in midair, with a look of astonishment on his face. How is this possible? I saw. What did you say to me? Originally, I wanted to make life worse than death, but now I want to make you even more. At this time, Han Huo had come back to his senses. Yi Feng said angrily. The two people on the side heard this and nodded subconsciously. Wearing steel armor, he stared at Yi Feng coldly. They are all steel armors. It seems they belong to the steel armor family. No wonder I have such a good relationship with Eagle Chan, but it doesn't matter. Listening to Yi Feng's words, Huo and others couldn't help but be stunned. How did he know that the Han family and Yingzhong were on good terms? Isn't this a family secret? Han Bing told him that this is impossible. However, before Hanho and the other two people could recover, Yi Feng's next words came out. The expressions of the three people immediately changed. Speaking of which, you guys are fighting in a group. But unfortunately, I seem to have forgotten to tell you that there is more than just one armor. The Xingtian armor is just the general's armor. There are also two deputy general armors. They are similar in strength to Xingtian, and they are a small team. Law enforcement team, Yi Feng said quietly. At the end of the sentence, Yi Feng touched the summoner on his waist. When they heard this scene, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. What? A look of astonishment on his face. Ah! Flying shadow armor, diamond armor. Fusion. Yi Feng patted the summoner and said quietly. And as Yi Feng finished speaking, two things suddenly appeared on both sides of Yi Feng. Take a closer look. It's a game console and MP3. And as Yi Feng's voice sounded, it instantly turned into an armored shadow. And as the last word of Yi Feng fell, armor fit. He suddenly became solid and stood on both sides of Yi Feng with a respectful expression. This was a hidden function of the Genesis bracelet at the time. As long as it's a team, you can summon a battle at the same time, and its strength is similar to Yi Feng. Yi Feng is still curious about who can enjoy this treatment. Unexpectedly, I met you unexpectedly, but that's fine. As the first lucky one, aren't you very happy? I saw Yi Feng smiling faintly. And this is this scene, which directly shocked everyone, and even made the woman couldn't help but be moved by it. A look of horror on his face. And those three people were dumbfounded. A look of shock on his face. There are 3 pairs of armor. And the strength is not weak. According to Yi Feng, are they from the same origin as Xingtian? Lieutenant General Armor. General Armor. The Lord's Armor Xingtian. Lieutenant's Armor Hiang and King Kong. So, these 2 armors also come from the Ming realm. They are all armors that come from, or are related to the Ming realm. The law enforcement team of the Ming realm. Thinking of this, everyone was shocked and confused. 3 armors. Yi Feng actually has 2 armors. And did you see that when these 2 armors appeared, the 2 summoners looked very much like the MP3 players and game consoles that Yi Feng took out earlier? It's not that they are very similar, but they are just the same. No wonder Yi Feng would do this. The co-author is not teasing Han Bing, but actually Yi Feng can freely transform into 3 powerful armors. Let him choose. I don't want to bully the few. I have to say that Yi Feng is quite kind. Are you sure that's kindness? Why do I think that's confidence? That's because Han Bing is not qualified and is not worthy of Master Yi to use this trick. Everyone has been genetically coded. And that's not the point. Forget there are 2 armors. The key point is that these 2 armors and the Xingtian armor are actually one team and one body according to Master Yi Feng's wishes. They are together. The Commander-in-Chief armor Xingtian, the Deputy Commander's armor King Kong and Fang. So, this is the general armor from the Ming realm. Then let's put it this way, is there any basic armor similar to that of a police officer? It's impossible to only have general type armor and not basic level armor. Well, when you say that, I think the Ming realm may really exist. Otherwise, if it is false, then I don't think there can be such a good system. What we already know now is the Ming realm Pharaoh's court, the Ming realm law enforcement team, and the possible existence of basic armors such as police officers. If the Ming realm is real, these should be. But it's impossible to say that it might not be true. After all, so far, in the past 50 years, we have never seen any news about the bright world, only supernatural beasts and other evil organizations abroad. As well as the recent new ones. Nether Demon. But whether it is true or not, there is no doubt that Yifeng can summon 3 armors in one. This is a fact. And the strength is not low. I heard that Yifeng also has a skill that can summon multiple people at the same time, 8-bit migration. So, if you want to deal with Yifeng, I'm afraid it won't work if there are more people. At this time, everyone present slowly came to their senses. Looking at the scene in front of me, he took a sharp breath of air and said with a look of uncertainty. His expression was very shocked and astonished. At the same time, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes, and he subconsciously recalled what happened before. Thinking of the scene during the battle, Yifeng directly took out the camera, MP3 and game console and let Han Bing choose at will under the astonished eyes of everyone. At that time, they just felt that Yifeng was just provoking each other and was a bit arrogant. Now it seems like this. But Yifeng has this strength, it is not a provocation, nor is it arrogant, it is a fact. Just seek truth from facts. Yifeng has the ability to do this, and he can indeed turn into 3 armors. It's just that they are short-sighted. I have never seen the world, so I don't know that this operation exists. Thinking of this, everyone present couldn't help but sigh. I am filled with emotion and emotion. At the same time, we also have a new understanding of Mingji. Some people believe it, some people doubt it, but there is no doubt that they have a new understanding of Yifeng's strength. At this time, not only the onlookers, but also Zhao Qing and others saw this scene. He couldn't help but nodded slightly. He smiled softly, not too surprised. But it was an expression that showed that it was indeed the case. Sure enough, it's just as I thought before. Yifeng can not only transform into Xingtian armor, but also other armors. King Kong and Hiei. At this time, Zhao Qing was seen watching this scene. Whispered softly, a look of emotion on his face. Although he had guessed it a long time ago, Zhao Qing still felt a little complicated when he saw it. And at this time, wow, there are 2 more pieces of armor. Everyone, take a look, there are 2 pieces of armor. Names King Kong and Hiei, King Kong armor, Hiei armor. Isn't it cool? Remember to pay attention. I will be the first to report Yifeng's situation to you. It is absolutely genuine. Creating false rumors and acting. Impossible. How dare you, sister? After Master Yi found out, No, I mean I have such a good character, how could I spread so few rumors? It must be true. At this time, it was different from the serious atmosphere. At this time, Wang Shui, who was on the side, was fiddling with his mobile phone and said with a look of amazement. His expression was very exciting and exciting. He said to the camera with a smile on his face. Especially when someone in the live broadcast room asked him if he would spread rumors about Yifeng in the future to gain traffic. Wang Shui said no with a serious look on her face. She knew how cruel Yifeng was, and she didn't want to be remembered by Yifeng. If he pissed him off later, he would only give her a move and be unable to move. However, after locking myself in a small dark room, thinking of this, Wang Shui shuddered subconsciously. No, absolutely not, this can't happen. I couldn't help but say it again and again. Zhao Qing raised his eyebrows at such a serious scene. You guy actually still has the heart to live broadcast. Is there any mistake? At this time, Mr. Zhang on the side did not think so much, but looked straight at this scene. Whispering something softly, his eyelids sank slightly. I don't know what I'm thinking. However, Wang Shui noticed that Mr. Zhang seemed to be holding something in his left hand, but it had sleeves and couldn't see clearly. Fortunately, I didn't care and continued to play with the live broadcast. And just when everyone had different expressions, the 3 elders of the Han family looked at this scene. He also slowly came back to his senses. Looking at Yifeng, his eyes narrowed slightly. His expression was a little heavy. The guard told them what happened before, so they naturally knew about it at this time. Looking at Fang armor and diamond armor standing on both sides of Yifeng, his face darkened, unexpectedly. It's true, you actually have such ability. Pipe! Quote. I heard before that you took out your camera, MP3 player, and game console to tease Xiaohan. Now it seems that you are not teasing, but that you are really capable. You are very talented, Yi Feng. Definitely the most talented person I have ever met. So based on the idea of cherishing talents, we will not embarrass you. You can come with us to the Han family. At this time, I saw that Han Huo had come back to his senses. Looking at Yi Feng, he slowly spoke. A serious look on his face. As he spoke, he looked towards the building on the side, which was the Imperial College. Not far from here. Nowadays, Yi Feng's talent is so strong that even the Han family dare not show it openly. Otherwise, a layer of skin will peel off by then. So this is the only way. Yes, we three brothers don't want to argue with you now. But you, the head of the family, are not easy for us to deal with. So you just need to go back with us, explain to the head of the family, and say that if the head of the house is kind, nothing will happen. We also get along well. At this time, Han Shui heard this. He also nodded and then spoke. A serious look on his face. At the same time, he couldn't help but glance at Fang Armor, which was closest to him. A look of fear on his face. Except Yi Feng is too talented and doesn't want to get into trouble. Of course, the main thing is that they sensed a threat from Yi Feng. Although it is very unbelievable, the three of them have already become famous and prestigious masters, but they would feel threatened by 10 newcomers who have not awakened for a month. But this is the fact, which makes the three of them murderous, and at the same time they have to take this strategy. Yep, at this time, Han Yi on the side didn't say much. But he nodded again and again. A look of sincerity on his face. Look at Yi Feng sincerely. Seeing this scene, everyone present couldn't help but look a little weird. Could it be that they wanted to trick Yi Feng into Han's house and then die? Do whatever you want, but isn't it a little too naive? Do you really think Mr. Yi would be so naive? But compared to this, what everyone is more surprised about is Tisk, I plan to trick young Master Yi into the Han family. Let's not talk about whether young Master Yi is so innocent and throws himself into a trap. This is the first time I have seen the behavior of the three of them at this time. Didn't you say that you were a murderer? I didn't expect that there is such a side. I have learned a lot, and I bully the weak and fear the strong. Obviously they are afraid of Yi Feng at this time. Indeed, but do you think Yi Feng will agree? Of course not. The head of the Han family is a strong SS-level man. Yi Feng will not go. Moreover, if they ask Yi Feng to go, Yi Feng will go. Doesn't that mean that they don't take me seriously, Mr. Yi? Don't you want to lose face? No matter what, the head of the other party's family must come here in person. It's really yours, but I guess even though Yi Feng won't go, it won't be too intense and the matter should be settled. What did he say? Okay, pretend I didn't say anything. I can only say that young Master Yi deserves to be young Master Yi. Looking at this scene, everyone whispered. His eyes were full of surprise, and someone secretly recorded this scene. Don't post it, just leave it as a sign. At the same time, he was curious about Yi Feng's next behavior and communicated secretly. However, everyone knew that Yi Feng might refuse. But the next scene still made everyone a little dumbfounded. What does Yi Feng want to do? I saw. How is it? At this time, when everyone had different expressions. At this time, the three elders of the Han family had also finished speaking. Then Han Huo took a slight step forward, looked at Yi Feng and concluded. A serious look on his face. His eyes were full of coldness. When Yi Feng agrees, take away Yi Feng's summoner. Thinking of this, Han Huo and the other three looked at the summoner around Yi Feng's waist with their faces filled with heat. Apparently the same idea as ice. And because I saw something more miraculous, this thought became even stronger. Hey, greedy, anger, ignorance. Greedy. However, what made everyone dumbfounded and what shocked Hanho and the other three was that Yi Feng snorted after hearing this. He glanced at Hanho and the other three. He spoke slowly. As he spoke, he directly summoned the weapon. Palm of fire. Flying shadow legs. Exploding punch. Yi Feng decisively summoned weapons, and Fang and King Kong also summoned weapons. The atmosphere instantly became extremely cold. And Yi Feng. The sound was not loud, but it was clearly heard in the ears of everyone present. Everyone was surprised. Greedy, angry and foolish. Greedy. Greedy for words. Good guy. Yi Feng doesn't want to ban the three members of the Huang family too. Although I knew Yi Feng would not agree, I didn't expect Yifeng to be so strong. Without saying a word, the three elders of the Han family will be band together. This really made everyone feel dumbfounded, beyond everyone's expectations. This is especially true after seeing Yifeng's actions. This is true. Instead of just talking and guessing. ZR. At this time, Hanho and the other three people also came to their senses. I also know the meaning of Yifeng. He couldn't help but look at Yifeng with anger on his face. Then he didn't say much and started fighting Yifeng with the other two. Because Yifeng was too lazy to talk nonsense with them, he had already taken the lead in attacking. Han Huo and Yifeng fought. Han Yi fights against diamond armor. Han Shui was fighting with Fang armor. There were bursts of explosions at the scene. Various missiles and bullets flew out. Various skills appear. Covering the sky palm, King Kong mountain and sea fist. Electric light cuts legs. The scene seemed to be in chaos, but everyone could see it clearly, but it looked a little chaotic. But in reality the battle is clear. Looking at Yifeng's combat effectiveness, looking at the combat effectiveness of the other two armors. Everyone couldn't help but secretly smack their mouths. Strength, speed, comprehensive. Is this the power of the armor of the three generals of the Ming realm? The attributes are so distinct. Each one is so strong. The diamond armor that symbolizes strength, the Fang armor that symbolizes speed, and the Xingtian armor that combines both, are these the power of the Mingji law enforcement team? So strong. Looking at this scene in front of them, everyone couldn't help but secretly exclaimed. Especially when he saw the diamond armor punching Han Yi's steel armor into a dent, he secretly smacked his lips. You must know that even other superpowers of the same level would find it difficult to achieve this step. It is recognized as the strongest defensive power. I didn't expect King Kong to be so powerful. Then I saw Fang's speed. Han Shui was often interrupted before he could attack. It's just for taking a beating. Although it's not strong enough, it's faster and the attacks are more intensive. It's reflected vividly. When looking at Yifeng, the Xingtian armor that everyone is most familiar with, they are even more surprised. With both speed and strength, he can suppress the cold fire. As expected, these three are all half-step S-level existences. And they are all very strong. The so-called three elders and the werewolf trio are simply a joke. Zhao Hao Hao. Maybe after this incident, it's time for the ruthless trio to change. The law enforcement team, Xingtian team, must be them. Mingji law enforcement team. At the same time, he gained a new understanding of these three pieces of armor, and also gained a clear understanding of what Yifeng said at that time. Indeed, Han Bing was very unlucky in choosing Xingtian. I don't know if I would have cried if I were still alive. Look, there's something going on. This is. And just when everyone was amazed, someone seemed to have discovered something. He pointed forward in an instant and exclaimed loudly. It directly attracted the attention of everyone present and looked over subconsciously. A look of astonishment on his face. I just saw. Yifeng knocked Han Huo and others away and looked at Han Huo and others who were half kneeling on the ground. The winner was decided at this moment, but what made everyone dumbfounded was. I saw Yifeng stepping slightly with his right foot. Fei Ying, King Kong followed closely behind. Then something happened that dumbfounded everyone. Heaven and earth are infinite. Furinkazan. The power of mountains and seas. Xingtian, Fang, King Kong's ultimate killing technique. Then a series of familiar scenes appeared directly surrounding Huo and others. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Feng Lin! Exclamation mark! Question mark! Show your sharpness. Listening to Yifeng's words, I was shocked. The power of heaven and earth, wind and forest, mountains and seas. In addition, the user is a human being and a living thing. Heaven, earth, people, everything in heaven and earth. The combination is the world. Why could it be the power of the world? When I saw this scene, I saw three pairs of armors using certain killing techniques that symbolized different powers. The woman couldn't help pressing her hands in front of the window, and her beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but frown. He said with a surprised look on his face. What is the Ming realm? Yinfa armor can actually use the calendar of the world. Wait until the matter is over and see if you can learn anything from Yifeng. Heaven and earth. Fengalin. The power of mountains and seas. Xingtian, Fang, King Kong's ultimate killing technique. I didn't expect to see this scene. The three armors launched a special attack at the same time. This is the first time I have seen such a scene. Now that I think about it, why do I still feel a little excited for no reason? I feel a little passionate. But in this way, it is certain that the third elder of the Han family, who is famous in the world, is destined to follow in the footsteps of Han Bing. But if this happens, I'm afraid the Han family will also notice this, and they don't know what will happen next. Yeah, I feel like things are going to change in Kyoto, but I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Asterisk asterisk. At this time, everyone was watching this scene. He slowly came back to his senses. He swallowed subconsciously. Watching the three armors of Xingtian, Fei Ying, and King Kong all open up and using their special killing techniques. Looking at the battlefield at this time, it was filled with all kinds of rich fires of judgment. Surrounded by flames, feeling this strong aura, everyone couldn't help but said in shock. Heart shaking, I can't believe that Yifeng would actually do this. They will ban the three elders of the Han family, you know, they are the third elders. His status in the Han family is not low, but what happened at this time made everyone extremely sure of this idea. Han Huo and others are destined to follow in the footsteps of Han Bing. I saw, just when everyone was shocked. At this time, Yifeng didn't think so much and stood proudly on the killing field. Looking at Han Huo, who stood up slowly, a little dazed, with a cold look on his face. You have violated the unforgivable crime of greed in the justice law of the galaxy. Today, I, Xingtian Armor, officially declare to deprive you of all your rights and seal and kill you. Let's capture him without mercy. Similar sounds were not only heard from Yifeng. The same is true in Hanye, Hanshui's sure kill field. My Fang armor, my diamond armor. At this time, the armor phantom was summoned and he announced Han Shui and Han Yi's crime and punishment according to the rules. Immediately, the scene was filled with the sound of pronouncements. Although some words are different, they are basically the same. There is no doubt that it is banned. Take away freedom. Looking at this scene, everyone slowly came back to their senses. Completely confirming what he was thinking in his heart, he couldn't help but sigh softly. This is especially true at the end. Many people raised their heads and looked towards the sky. I don't know what I'm thinking about, and my expression is a little dazed. Amazed. Yifeng. At this time, Zhao Qing and others were watching this moment. His expression condensed slightly, whispered softly. And just when everyone had different expressions, they were in a dark room. A man in black robe looked at the screen in front of him and narrowed his eyes slightly. Naturally, he couldn't be in Wang Shui's live broadcast room at this time, because it was too annoying there. And they were all Xingtian fans and Yifeng fans, which made him very unhappy. How can these armors be as cool as his supernatural beasts? Ha, what a bunch of hopelessly stupid humans. Thinking of this, Ying Ba said with disdain. His eyes were filled with contempt. Therefore, naturally, Shadow Ba did not see this scene through Wang Shui's live broadcast room, but saw another scene. And it needs to be more high definition and clearer. At this time, Ying Ba looked at the scene in front of him. Eyes narrowed slightly. The three major law enforcement armors of the Ming Realm Law Enforcement Team. I didn't expect that the three major judgment moves in the Ming Realm would all appear together. This is indeed a bit surprising. But, looking at Yifeng, looking at the scene in front of him. Shadow Ba said slowly, his expression condensed slightly. At the end, his tone paused slightly. Why have I never heard of or even seen this so-called Xingtian armor, Mingji Law Enforcement armor before? And looking at the aura, it seems that it is no worse than the five elements armor. It seems that even in the Ming realm, the status is not low, and it should not be worse than the five elements armor. Looking at these three sets of armor, he said with a puzzled expression. He kept tapping his fingers on the table, thinking secretly. But he already had a guess in his heart. Galactic law of justice, given by the Ming realm, and the Ming realm designated moves. Maybe these three armors were just born in this universe, not from the bright world. Are the native armors considered to be added from outside? Then Ying Ba seemed to think of something again, thinking about Yifeng's trial process. Adej couldn't help but said immediately. A thoughtful look on his face. If this is the case, then these three armors cannot be underestimated and can join the Ming realm as outsiders. And the status is not low, so it can be imagined that these three armors have great potential. The strength is extraordinary, otherwise, it would be impossible to get the approval of the Mingji Pharaoh's court and the recognition of those armors. In short, there must be something outstanding. Thinking of this, Ying Ba couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. However, these are all speculations, and you have to ask insiders to find out the details. It is impossible to find Yi Feng. It is not that he is afraid of Yi Feng, but with his strength, he is not afraid of Yi Feng. What he is afraid of is Kyushu. Ying Ba believes that as long as he dares to go to the imperial capital, he dares to find Yi Feng. I'm just afraid that he won't survive the sun tomorrow. Hey, my strength is still a bit lacking. It would be great if those adults were here. Why be afraid of these people? Thinking of this, Shadow Ba couldn't help but sigh. He said with a helpless look, "It seems like we have to find a way to summon other people too. But compared to this, the most urgent thing is to find out all the information about the armor summoned by Yi Feng." Thinking of this, Shadow Ba slowly came back to his senses. Shaked his head, smiled softly. It seems there is another reason to meet those so-called ghost demons. And just when everyone had different expressions, Yi Feng looked at Han Huo coldly. Little does he know that at this time, he has been completely remembered and missed by Shadow Ba. I don't know what Shadow Ba's plan is. Even if he knew, Yi Feng wouldn't care. At this time, he was looking straight at Han Huo on the killing field, following the rules. Directly pronounced the end of Han Huo, sealed and killed. At this time, listening to Yi Feng's words, Han Huo's face turned pale. Trembling. The body keeps shaking. You. Let me go, this matter will be wiped out. If he said it before, he would never believe that someone dared to block him here openly. But after the battle with Yi Feng, especially after hearing Yi Feng's words. At this time, Han Huo was already certain that he was completely cold. Maybe I really won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. The thought of myself stepping into the footsteps of the ice. He was beaten into a genetic code and did not know whether he would live or die. He couldn't help but look at Yi Feng and spoke tremblingly. His eyes were full of horror. Not only cold fire, but also yin yi and water. Begging for mercy from Yi Feng. Although they are not facing Yi Feng, they know very well that Fang and King Kong are both from Yi Feng. His life completely depends on Yi Feng. However, Yi Feng remained indifferent to their pleas for mercy. If begging for mercy is enough, there is no need to enforce the law. Ah, I saw Yi Feng sneer. Then, together with Fang and King Kong, they all took out the summoning cards. Put it in the summoning card box. Palm of fire. Flying shadow legs. Exploding punch. Then they all rushed towards the three members of the Han family. Chenkin takes possession of the devil. Arhat's demon smashing fist. Wind subdues the devil's legs. Voices sounded one after another, and Yi Feng, Fei Ying and King Kong rushed towards the three people of the Han family. Feeling this powerful aura, Han Huo's pupils shrank sharply. Eyes widened, he looked at Yi Feng who was getting closer and closer to him. He said with a look of reluctance. The pupils of his eyes seemed to be shattered. Why, once the sealing process starts, how can it be interrupted? If I had known this, why did I do it in the first place? Quote exclamation mark question mark question mark question mark question mark quote. At this time, the woman looked at this scene. He sighed lightly and shook his head. He spoke slowly. At the end, Zipping noticed something. The beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but frown slightly, and subconsciously looked into the distance. Were they unable to hold back after all? At this moment, a shrill cry sounded, resounding throughout the area. Master, save me. At the same time, Wen Yifeng killed Han Bing, banned Han Huo and others, and issued the trial results. At this time, the Han family and the Han family are in a cold state. A middle-aged man who seemed to be 40 years old was sitting cross-legged on the bed. At this time, he did not meditate as calmly as he imagined, but felt inexplicably upset. Distraught, he opened his eyes directly. He grabbed his hair hard. How is this going? What's going on with this sudden panic? He said with an annoyed look. Extremely depressed. Logically speaking, with his strength and status, it is impossible for this to happen. Could it be? What happened? Then he seemed to think of something, and Han Tian, the head of the Han family, stood up directly. He said with a surprised look on his face. This is the only reason why he would be like this. Something big must have happened. The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Han Tian headed directly towards the door. But at this moment, before Han Tian could walk out of the door. At this time, the door was pushed open directly, and the elder of the family walked in a hurry. Seeing his eldest elder's somewhat panicked look, Han Tian couldn't help but feel a thump in his heart. My heart is tight. There is no need to guess, something must have happened. And he's not too young, otherwise his eldest elder wouldn't be like this. He couldn't help but speak. What happened? But as the head of the Han family, he naturally has to be calm. He couldn't help but speak calmly. At the same time, looking at the appearance of the great elder, he couldn't help but frown. Somewhat unhappy. As an elder of my Han family, your status is only lower than the supreme elder of the Han family. How could you be like this? He couldn't help but scolded loudly. A serious look on his face. Even if he knew something was wrong, Han Tian didn't take it seriously. I don't think it will be a big deal. I just feel that this elder's mental quality is not good enough. It's impossible for someone to hit his Han family, right? How can this be? Thinking of this, Han Tian sneered. However, what the great elder said next made Tian's face freeze. His face changed. Master, something big has happened. Master, his life card is broken. After listening to Han Tian's words, the great elder also came back to his senses a little. Stabilized my mind. Then he spoke directly, a look of sadness and anger on his face. Oh, that's it. I thought it was. What? What did you say? What happened to Bing-er? Han Tian heard this and nodded subconsciously. He said with a nonchalant look. The expression is calm, and the power of the family leader is not angered. The great elder couldn't help but look in admiration. The head of the house deserves to be the head of the house. Even though I know my precious child is gone, I am still so calm. With admiration in my heart. And before the great elder could continue to express his emotions, Han Tian seemed to notice something at this time. He came back to his senses instantly. He came directly to the great elder, grabbed his shoulders, and stared wide-eyed. Shouted loudly, a look of shock and anger on his face. Great elder. Seeing this scene, Elder Yin couldn't help but feel a little confused. Didn't you say you should calm down? Why should you be calm? My son is dead, and I am still a loser. What happened to my son Hanbing? Master, his life card is broken. Listening to Han Tian's words, the great elder shuddered subconsciously. Then he hurriedly spoke. At the same time, he seemed to think of something, and then spoke. And not only the young master, but Elder Huo, Elder Yi, and Elder Shui's life cards are also shaky at this time, as if they are about to collapse. A cautious look on his face. He was afraid that Han Tian would kill him in a rage. What? Who is it? Listening to the great elder's words, Han Tian spoke subconsciously. A murderous look on his face. According to the information they sent, it is Mingji. Boom. Then something happened that shocked everyone in the imperial capital. There was a sudden explosion in Han's house, and then the roof cracked. The head of the Han family and the great elder of the Han family all flew towards the battlefield of the imperial capital. The people of the imperial capital will never forget that day. Especially those two words full of someone's anger. Mingji, Yi Feng. What happened? Mingji, Yi Feng. It seems like there is a live broadcast here, take a look and see if this is what happened. After hearing this, everyone in the imperial capital said in astonishment. A confused look on his face. Then no one knew who exclaimed, which directly attracted the attention of many people. People flocked to Wang Shui's live broadcast room. Naturally, some families similar to the Han family heard the sound, and they all went out to inquire about the news. They wanted to know what happened to the Han family. How dare you yell so loudly and lose your temper in the imperial capital without fear of being blamed from above? At the same time, he murmured a few words silently. Mingji, Yi Feng, keep these two words firmly in mind, and prepare to inquire about them after the matter is over. What happened? Let's see who can push the head of the Han family to this point and make a person who is very good at forbearance become so popular. However, as the news came one after another, all the masters were stunned. They did not expect that the news would be so easy to find out. But then his face couldn't help but become a little solemn, and his brows furrowed deeply. A look of shock. Mingji. Law Enforcement Court. Law Enforcement Armor. Law Enforcement Team. A sure kill. Yi Feng. As more and more news came, the faces of the family heads could not help but darken. I really didn't expect that so many things would happen in such a short period of time. What is the origin of this bright world? Does it really exist? At this time, the head of the Yi family, who was somewhat at odds with the Han family, frowned tightly after hearing the news. Whispered softly. Then he thought of the scene where the head of the Han family stormed away angrily, and his eyebrows relaxed. Just in time, let this barbarian go find out. He couldn't help but murmured softly. Then he began to pay attention silently. Not only him, but other family heads and some powerful folk also began to pay careful attention at this time. I want to try the depth of Yi Feng in this cold weather. By the way, let's learn about the power of this so-called law enforcement armor. At the same time, on the duel field, Wang Shui couldn't help but feel happy when she saw the sudden increase in energy. Xiao Qing, look, my popularity is rising again, he said in surprise to Zhao Qing, who had been watching the battle. However, Wang Shui didn't wait for him to finish. At this time, an angry voice came. This directly caused Wang Shui to pause and look shocked. Mingji. Yi Feng. I couldn't help but subconsciously turned my head and looked over. A look of astonishment on his face. At this time, not only Wang Shui, but also others heard it, or everyone present heard this. I couldn't help being startled, and subconsciously turned my head to look. Why does this voice seem familiar? I think I've heard it somewhere before. I remember it. Isn't this the head of the Han family? I was lucky enough to meet him on the street, and my ability is related to hearing, so I heard his voice. At that time, he seemed to be discussing Yingzhong, so I remembered still knew. The owner of this voice is Han Tian, the head of the Han family, an SS-level strongman. It is said that he has awakened the ability of steel armor, and also has innate skills, retroactively. You can use some clues to trace the past and even the future of those things and know everything. Therefore, you have a good relationship with the government and are extremely powerful. You can choose an existence that is superior to the same level. But why do I feel so angry from this voice? Do you need to say this? People must know about this. That's why I came here with an angry face. I guess it will be here soon. Then it's dangerous to say that Mr. Yi Feng is not very dangerous. I guess so. Even though there was a lot of distance between them, the sound was still deafening. Everyone couldn't help but touch their ears subconsciously. He said with a look of astonishment. Then someone reacted and couldn't help but slap themselves on the thigh. Exclaimed loudly. The owner of the voice spoke directly, causing everyone to turn their heads and look over subconsciously. A look of curiosity on his face. Seeing this, the man couldn't help but speak out without thinking. As he spoke, he couldn't help but look towards Yi Feng on the duel field. His eyes couldn't help but be filled with worry. After all, everyone knows why the head of the Han family behaves like this. At the end, he couldn't help but shook his head. His eyes couldn't help but be filled with worry. Although there was not much time, everyone present still had a good impression of Yi Feng. Naturally, I don't want anything to happen to Yi Feng, but I don't know what to do now, so I can only do this. Quote. At this time, Wang Shui listened to everyone's words. He also came back to his senses. I knew the identity of the visitor and the owner of the voice. He couldn't help but subconsciously shouted to Zhao Qing. Eyes full of worry. I want to know if Zhao Qing, who has always been mature, can solve this problem. At the same time, I felt a little annoyed inside. She really didn't expect that the cold sound of Han Huo could actually call the head of the Han family. We should have taken action to kill him earlier. If not, you should throw a big stone and block his mouth. Thinking of this, Wang Shui looked annoyed. At this time, Zhao Qing did not know what Wang Shui was thinking. At this time, she came to her senses after listening to Wang Shui's words. Breathed softly. Yi Feng. But he didn't say anything, just sighed. Then he looked at Yi Feng on the duel field. Said softly. Now I can only believe Yi Feng. At this time, when everyone had different expressions, it was about to end for Yifeng. About to enter the final stage. "Ah, you're done," that's the voice of the head of the family. "I advise you to let me go, otherwise you will." At this time, Han Huo listened to this voice. He, who was on the verge of death, cheered up instantly. The light returned to his eyes again. Gritting his teeth, he stood up and looked at Yifeng and said through gritted teeth. A serious look on his face. At the same time, his eyes were full of expectation. "I hope this can scare away Yifeng. He didn't expect the head of the family to save him, or he probably didn't have the time. I'm afraid that by the time the owner of the house arrives, he will already be cold. So the ideal state is that Yifeng retreats and takes back his skills." Then he turned around and left, following those people into the Imperial College. This way life is guaranteed. And this is also the thinking of normal people, and it is also the way to break the situation today. So Han Huo is looking forward to Yifeng leaving, but he doesn't want to lose face. That's why I spoke like this, and I hope this can scare Yifeng even more. And listening to Han Huo's words, everyone present also came back to their senses. Nodded. Understand the key. This is indeed a good way to save one's life. He couldn't help but look at Yifeng seriously. However, what dumbfounded everyone and Han Huo was, "I'm not sure anything will happen to me. But I'm sure you won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. Haven't you always wanted to see your Mr. Han and want to know what the ban is and the process of the ban? Now I do as you wish." Fire sword technique. I saw a flash of light in Yifeng's eyes, and there seemed to be a flash of light where the armor protected his eyes. Then I saw Yifeng subconsciously looking towards the sky on the right. Then he looked at Han Huo and said coldly. A look of coldness on his face. He said the last thing, directly under Han Huo's desperate gaze. "Directly summon the burning sword." Then he jumped lightly and rushed towards the cold fire. At the same time, Fei Weijia and King Kong armor also summoned the shadow blade and explosive words at the same time. Swift shadow knife phantom knife technique. Explosive thunder drill Hunyuan drill method. Han Yi, who originally breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Han Huo's words, Han Shui's heart suddenly rose again. Shivered. The pupils shrank sharply. A look of horror on his face. "No, you can't do this." And Han Huo shouted loudly. However, it is of no use in their sight. Yifeng's figure got closer and closer, and then under their horrified eyes. Hit it directly. Suddenly, several sword lights appeared on the scene, and miserable sounds echoed throughout the audience. Explosions sounded. When the smoke and dust dissipated, the steel armors of Han Huo and others had already been shattered and became tattered. The breath is sluggish. Blood stains all over. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but sucked in a sharp breath of air. I do not know what to say. Only the woman in the tall building watched this scene. Her beautiful eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. He just discovered me. Recalling Yifeng's slight movement just now, the woman said with a surprised look on her face. You must know that Chen Wei's strength is several levels higher than Yifeng. Even the head of the Han family who is coming is not her opponent. How could Yifeng find her? So is that a coincidence? And before Chen Wei could think about it for a long time, she seemed to notice something at this time. He came back to his senses instantly. He turned his head slightly and looked into the distance. Coming. But, speaking of this, Chen Wei couldn't help but pause slightly. Then he turned his head and looked at Yifeng. His expression condensed. It's no different than not coming. Whispered softly. After using the fire sword technique, Yifeng jumped slightly. Falling on the ground, looking at Han Huo lying on the ground, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. He nodded slightly. Seal 3 fire and electric gun. Burning light explosive bomb. Then he directly summoned the torture gun, and then jumped up lightly. Standing high in the sky. Pressed directly on the cold fire. Suddenly a fire bomb appeared instantly and blasted towards Han Huo. At the same time, Fang armor and diamond armor also came to an end. Flying shadow gun flying shadow swift shadow arrow. Thunder cannon King Kong chaos wave. As each of them shouted softly, powerful attacks were immediately launched. Falling on cold water and cold leaves. Boom. There were explosions. By the time the cold weather arrives, things are over. No. Watching Han Huo and others disappear, leaving only A scene of a blob of genetic code. Han Tian couldn't help but roared angrily. Then he looked at Yifeng with an angry look. How dare you, Mingjian, kill a member of my Han family? He said with an angry look. Looking at Yifeng standing proudly, his face was filled with joy. At this time, in order to save Han Huo and others quickly, he took the lead and arrived here before the 7 elders. But it was still a step too late. Looking at this scene, he suddenly became angry. Staring at Yifeng with an angry face, his momentum is overwhelming. The floor on the ground has been broken a lot. Seeing this scene, everyone present was shocked. Is this the pressure of an SS-level powerhouse? At the same time, he became less optimistic about Yifeng's situation, thinking that Yifeng was in trouble this time. However, what they didn't expect and even felt dumbfounded was, I just saw, as this SS-level power. At this time, Yifeng had already withdrawn the shadows of Fang in diamond armor, feeling the pressure. I couldn't help but secretly be shocked. It is estimated that he is in the imperial capital, or he is afraid of something, and his strength is fully released. Otherwise, I'm afraid it's not just this. But even so, even though he was protected by armor, he still felt that his breathing was not smooth. Thinking of this, Yifeng couldn't help but murmured softly. But there was no big panic. He had just used the armor's energy to predict the future. Although he didn't see it clearly, Yifeng knew it. So he stood there with a calm expression. And this scene naturally fell into Han Tian's eyes. Looking at the indifferent Yifeng, he was not panicked as he imagined, and even knelt down to beg for mercy. His fists could not help but clenched slightly. Teeth clenched tightly. You're fine, he said coldly. The bright world, right? Today I will destroy this so-called bright world in front of you. Make you a sinner of your sect and let you live in regret forever. Then Han Tian seemed to think of something, and then spoke. A look of coldness on his face. Then just close your eyes, activate your natural skills, and trace back. I want to use my current clues to guess where the bright world is. The origin of Mingji. Yifeng, who originally had an indifferent face, listened to Han Tian's words. Can't help but look a little weird. What, you want to destroy the Ming realm? Did I hear it correctly? Are you serious? With your broken armor, you might not even be able to defeat the original supernatural beast, or even Yifeng's god of war Xingtian. Do you want to conquer the bright world? Are you sure you are not sending yourself to death? At this time, Han Tian didn't know Yifeng's weird thoughts. Instead, he continued to increase his powers and wanted to detect the origin of the bright world. Xingtian armor, Mingji court, Xingtian certain kill technique, law enforcement armor, fire punishment sword. Put all the information you know into it. Then started tracing back. After seeing this scene, Chen Wei stood up and was about to take action. The family heads who were paying close attention also looked over with serious expressions. They are also curious about the Ming realm. He is also very confident in Han Tian's ability and never sleeps. Even SSS level beings can get a glimpse of something. So they believed that they would be able to get some news. At the very least, it can be determined whether there really is a bright world. However, before they had waited for long, the next scene shocked them, and it was this scene that made everyone dumbfounded. I saw, puff, Han Tian, who had his eyes closed suddenly opened them and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he fell straight down. Yi Dada, please continue. After saying that, he fainted. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Dumbfounded. You Mingjia and dared to kill my Han family. Please continue. He is. Exclamation mark. Question mark. What did he see? At this time, Chen Wei looked at this scene. Whispered softly. At the same time, he slowly looked towards Yifeng. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.